Hello there. Shabbat Shalom. Welcome back to our humble abode, and we're glad to have you. And you're supposed to say we're glad to be had, but no, we celebrating the feast of first fruits, Yom HaBikurim, which is tomorrow morning. Um, Hello.
Hello.
Okay, Gil. We just got started, so hang in there. We'll do our readings in a moment. Un momento. So again, welcome. We've been hoping and praying that everyone is keeping safe, keeping focused, and taking care of themselves, taking care of each other, being focused, not being foolish, doing what we can do, and thank the eternal Yahuwah for the ability for we can communicate this way. We can communicate our message in the midst of this craziness, this quarantine. So whatever your opinion is of that thing, or whether we should or shouldn't be gathering in large or small assemblies, I'm just taking the position better safe than sorry. And we can always laugh about this later on down the road regarding its severity or lack thereof. It's pretty severe for those who have succumbed to the illness. And yes, every year more people actually die of the flu. And yes, every year people die of cancer, of heart disease, of a lot of things. But whatever we can do to prevent ourselves, they're saying, more people die of bee stings than shark attacks. Remember that old story, which always came out after a Jaws movie would be released, right? More people die of bee stings than shark attacks. But regardless, you don't want to be a statistic. Even if 1 in 1,000 people succumb to some illness that you could have otherwise avoided, you don't want to be that one. So you want to be on the safe side, on the good side, on the flip side. So we want to be sure that everyone has that opportunity to be healthy and safe. So amen to that. So good news. Today we are 5, 10, 15, 20, 21, 21st show. So we've come of age. We're now of legal age. So hopefully we are acting mature. We are growing in maturity and not acting like a child anymore. And if anything, we've tried to study the progress of our maturity by focusing and teaching about things that we need to be aware of, not acting like children, but rather as the author of Hebrews, if you believe it's Shaul or Apollos or any number of people, whatever, it doesn't matter. But he's saying you should all be able to teach by now, but some of you are still children drinking milk and you're not ready for the solid food. So we're praying that we're all chewing on solid food, not because of us, but that we are growing to maturity and that we look to each other to help encourage each other to build each other up, not tear each other down. The Messiah showed us the way that we can build each other up. The world just wants to tear each other apart generally, but during the time of crises, we see a lot of really good examples of people who have a heart to be of help and assistance to others, as well as those that will seek to exploit and prey upon the vulnerable. So we need to know better. We need to be faithful. We need to grow and be mature. And I'm running out of the exercise of doing the thing. I think starting next week, we're going to do Roman letters, okay? So this is XXI today, okay? So we'll figure it out. We'll as each introduction, we will try different ways, different methods to let you know what show you're watching. And now we're actually giving details of our messages. So we're growing, we're learning. And again, I was watching a few really good biblical teachings the other night, and how the like we are really low tech. And if somebody just saw one of these programs, how polished it is, wow. Look at the video quality. Look at the words are printed on the screen, and they dissolve, and they come back into we were pretty old school here. And I thank you for the patience of those who have said, hey, this looks like this guy is filming in his basement or something. But this isn't Wayne's world. This is my world. It is his world. And guess what? He's got the whole world in his hands. And we are there. And if we are faithful, we will remain there. Okay, so again, I thank you for those of us, for those of you rather, who have joined us and have made it a habit or a hobby of watching us. And in spite of our presentation, but that you are mature enough to see through that and to grow and in the grace and knowledge of the Most High. And once this thing is over and we're back to making our presentations with a full house here, and I look forward to our friend Michael's coming back into the saddle and teaching, because he does an amazing job of teaching in great depth and detail. We got to hold him back sometimes. We got to, whoa, slow it down, because he's eager and he's a great brother, great teaching, and I miss that aspect of our presentations. But you got me, and hopefully you've been watching and telling people about it, and that's very important. And please subscribe to our program, our channel, if you will, Kahal Elohim, which means congregation, community, ecclesia, gathered out ones, called out ones. Kahal Elohim, the congregation of Elohim. Some people would say church of God, or church of the Most High, but we don't use the word church, or at least I don't, because it's a corrupt term, and I'll tell you more about that term and how it came about another time. I want to get right to our presentation. And again, please subscribe. Please tell people about it. Say there's this really old school kind of corny presentation going on with a couple of weird folk, and just listen to what they got to say. But again, we always resort to what the Word says about the Word, which is to prove all things, to test all things, to be faithful in all things, and we need to be mindful of all things. So we need to understand much more than we do, and we take a lot for granted. And one of the main teachings from our outset was understanding the full concept of what Shabbat is. Everyone says it's a good day to rest and to take naps and whatever. Do as you like, but the root of the word Shabbat is to stop. To stop. Whether it's sinning, whether it's doing your own stuff, and this is the day that the Eternal has made. Let us rejoice and be glad in it, and understand Torah, understand the instruction. And again, for those who are new, where have you been? Okay, this is 21. Okay, well, we welcome you, the newcomers, and some of you have been there for a long time, putting up with us. Again, my terminology, we use certain different terminology. Instead of G-O-D, we say Elohim, which is the word that's used in the scriptures, the name of the Creator, Elohim. Not the name, but who He is, the Eternal. Yud-He-Vav-He, the four-letter tetragrammaton. We refer to Him as Yah or Yahuwah, and as opposed to Lord in all caps, which is how most of our Bibles have been comprised, L-O-R-D capitals. But He has a name, and He has a teaching, and we shouldn't take the name in vain. And the name is beyond just like Bob. It is the teaching, the authority, what the name represents. And as you see, the names in the scriptures all have meaning. And I'm going to be talking about that later on from Genesis chapter 5, which is a cool teaching, which is not my own. I stumbled upon this, and every so often we'll go through this, and it's pretty amazing. The genealogy in chapter 5. And we also look at the gematria of situations with the numbers and the significance of numbers. But again, instead of the Jesus, we use the term Yeshua, which is his Hebrew name, which also has meaning. It means the salvation of Yah, of the Eternal. So we present as best we can the mindset of the early community of believers. Again, the Kahal, the community of believers. It's not a building. In fact, it is a building only in the sense that we are the living stones, and that's another teaching in and of itself. People are waiting for the temple to be built in Jerusalem, whereas the temple is standing right now, the body of Messiah. That's another whole teaching. The true community of believers is the temple which the Ruach, the Spirit, inhabits. So we are attempting to be faithful to our calling. And again, please subscribe. Let people know about this. We got this little broadcast, and I'm so grateful to all of you who have been watching. And By word of mouth, we can really build up something special here. And we depend on each other. And again, for subject matter, in the next few weeks, I got some really good subjects, really good stuff I've been working on and praying about in the germ stage. What's faith? It's got to germinate, but I have these subjects I've been studying, and some really interesting things. Okay, so again, please subscribe, tell people about us. And again, we revert back to Shabbat and the concept of Shabbat. We quote weekly from Exodus, the book of Shemot, 31:13, which again is that little palindrome, 3113. And the eternal Yahuwah says to Moshe, speak to the Bnei Israel, which are the children of Israel, saying, above all, top priority, above all my Shabbatot, my Sabbaths, plural, you shall keep, for it, and singular, so it's plural, but it's singular, for it is a sign between me and you throughout your generations, that you may know that I am the eternal Yah who sanctifies you. So again, Sabbath wasn't made, man wasn't made for the Sabbath, but Sabbath was made for man. It's a gift, and it's for mankind, not for a certain group of people. The certain group of people are those who were faithful to the eternal, not from their birthright specifically. But when you read the book of Yeshayahu, the great book of prophecy, the last chapter, it says, from one new moon to another, from one Shabbat to another, all flesh shall come to worship before me, says the eternal Yahuwah. Okay, so all mankind shall come before him from Shabbat to Shabbat. And the early community of believers in the book of Acts all met on Shabbat, always on Shabbat. And the word that's translated in the first day of the week actually means on one of the Sabbaths. So we'll do that also at another time, where I see the original Greek. First day of the week is not an accurate translation of the Greek. It's on one of the Shabbats. Okay. So we're going to get started. Again, I thank you for your patience in dealing with us. We're still learning a lot, and we want to communicate that learning to all the mishpacha, all the family, all the chavarim, all the friends. And we have our Torah scroll right now, which my beloved better half will lift up. That's a handful, and the Torah is a mouthful. Again, Torah is instruction. We never outgrow our need for Torah. And again, another teaching coming up is to deal with dispensationalism, which says, well, that was for then, this is now. The Lord works differently at different times, in which he specifically designates, whereas the word says he's the same yesterday, today, and forever, and he does not change. His approach has never changed. It's always kadosh. It is always holy. And it is always appropriate for those who call upon him to reflect that holiness. Be holy, for I am holy. Kadosh to kadosh. That's how we can relate to each other. And everyone's talking about personal relationships. Well, that's how relationships develop. They have common ground. They have a deeper understanding, things that they share in common. And with the eternal Yahuwah, it is the covenant. We are covenanted with the Most High. So that is if we truly are. Okay, so I'm trusting that we are. But we'll be testing that and proving that also in the weeks to come. So again, we begin with a call to the eternal, for the ark would travel. When the ark would travel, Moshe would say, arise, O eternal Yah, and let your enemies be scattered. Let them that hate you flee from you. For from Zion shall go forth the Torah, and the word of the eternal Yahuwah from Jerusalem. Blessed be he who in his holiness gave Torah to his people Yisrael. So again, the two roads to take are the way of get and the way of give. And the eternal Yahuwah gives. He gives Torah. He gives us the opportunity to know him. He gave his only begotten. And he requires us to give. And that's part of my presentation also. And even the idea of presenting and presentation is part of that as well. Okay? Ki mitzion de'etzei Torah, udvar Yahuwah meYerushalayim. For from Zion shall go forth Torah and the word of the Most High from Jerusalem. Now the Torah blessings, Baruchu et Yahuwah hamivorach, Baruchu ata Yahuwah Eloheinu melech haolam, asher bacha banu michol ha'amin v'natan lanu et Torato, Baruch atah Yahuwah noten haTorah. Amen. Amen. Bless the Eternal, the Blessed One. Bless the Eternal, the Blessed One for all eternity. Blessed are you, O Eternal Yahuwah, our Elohim, Melech HaOlam, Sovereign of Infinity, King of the Universe, who has chosen us from all peoples and given us his Torah. Blessed are you, O Eternal Yahuwah, giver of Torah. Amen. Noten HaTorah. So we give him thanks. We give him praise. We express our gratitude because the world knows that Elohim exists. Romans 1 is talking about the world of unbelief. And they say everyone knows that he exists, but they don't express their gratitude to him. They don't come to know who he is and what he expects from us. They just kind of make all kinds of assumptions. And of course, we know what happens when you assume. Okay, look it up. Odd Couple episode. I don't know what number it is or what season it was, but they get a good exegetical study. Felix did in the courtroom, a full understanding of what assume is. Excellent teaching, Tony Randall, who I got to meet. Actually, he was a pretty decent guy. Okay, so we give thanks to our most holy Yahuwah, our most holy Elohim, and I have our friends who are normally sitting on the couch behind me, and they're going to do their sharing via conference calling. So, hey, we're not so low tech as you might think, okay? So here we go. Miss Patricia Miller. Hello, Pat. Are you?
Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom, Gil. I think Pat goes first.
Yes.
Today is Psalms 91.
91, Psalm 91.
He who dwells in the secret place of the Most of the Almighty will say of the Eternal, He is my refuge and my fortress, my Elohim, in Him I will trust.
Amen.
Surely deliver you from the snare of the fowler and from the perilous pestilence. He shall cover you with his feathers, and under his wings you shall take refuge. His truth shall be your shield and buckler. You shall not be afraid of the terror by night,
No.
nor of the arrow that flies by day, nor of the pestilence that walks in darkness.
Here we go.
Nor of the destruction that lays waste at noonday. 8,000 may fall at your side, and 10,000 at your right hand, but it shall not come near you. Only with your eyes shall you look and see the reward of the wicked.
Amen.
Because you have made the Eternal, who is my refuge, even the Most High, your habitation. No evil shall befall you, nor shall any plague come near your dwelling, for he shall give his angels charge over you, to keep you in all your ways. They shall bear you up in their hands, lest you dash your foot against a stone. You shall tread upon the lion and the cobra, the young lion and the serpent you shall trample underfoot, because he has set his love upon me.
Yes.
Therefore I will deliver him. I will set him on high, because he has known my name. He shall call upon me, and I will answer him.
Amen.
I will be with him in trouble. I will deliver him and honor him. With long life I will satisfy him and show him my salvation.
Amen. Which is Yeshua. He will show us his Yeshua. We will see evidence of Yeshua even at the resurrection. He is risen. Amen. Thank you, Pat.
A powerful chapter.
Yep.
When a believer is in a time of crisis, the ending of all of this is the most powerful of all. As Elohim says, he will show him or her his salvation. If you have salvation, all of these other serious circumstances of plague, night terrors, 1,000 persons dropping at your side or any other threat are only temporarily, because ultimately Elohim is our refuge, our fortress, our shield, our buckler, and his love overshadows us and will bring us safely into the kingdom someday. Elohim truly is our fortress and our refuge.
Amen.
Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Pat. Amen. And again, Psalm 91 is a good psalm for us to be meditating upon in these days of uncertainty with regards to pestilence, as it says there. We need to be not fearful, but faithful, and to trust and obey. There's no other way. He shows us the way. Just like we're obeying the laws of washing hands and social distancing and not touching our face constantly. And I can't resist myself, but I must. And we need to obey those laws. Oh, wow, we're not under law, we're under grace. Why should we be obeying laws? Oh, it sounds freaky. Sounds too legalistic for me. Okay, well, we can count your body now before the hearse comes and takes you. My friend from England, Michael Hudson, as it were, he said, it's not the cough that carries you off, it's the coffin they carry you off in. So let that not be upon you. Let us be serious about this. We have a great opportunity to stop, which is what Shabbat is all about. Stop. A lot of us actually have time. Gee, I really need to do some Bible reading, and I really need to do some devotion. Well, wait a minute. We're given an opportunity on a silver platter. So let us do this opportunity and make the most of it, and learn, and to be a blessing, and to be more deep in the Word, and to be more faithful. Thank you, Pat. Beautiful psalm. He is our habitation. Yoshev Besater Elyon. You know, he is our hiding place. He is in the secret places of the Most High. He hides us and protects us. Amen. Mr. Gilbert.
Yes, sir.
All right.
Reading Psalms 90.
We go one before. Okay.
I read in the name of the Father, name of the Son, name of the Holy Spirit. Eternal, thou hast been our dwelling place in all generations. Before the mountains were brought forth, or ever thou art from the earth, the world, even from everlasting to everlasting, thou art Elohim.
Yes.
Thou turnest man to destruction, and said, return, ye children of men. For 1,000 years in thy sight are but as yesterday when it is past, and as a watch in the night. Thou carriest them away as with a flood. They are as asleep in the morning. They are like grass which groweth up. In the mountains it flourisheth, and groweth up in the evening it is cast down and withered. For we are consumed by thine anger, and by thy wrath are we troubled. Thou hast set our iniquities before thee, our secret sins in the light of thy countenance. For all our days are passed away in thy wrath. We spend our years as a tale that is told. The days of our years are 80 years and 10, and if by reason of strength they be for 80 years, yet is their strength labor and sorrow, for it is soon cut off, and we fly away. Who knows the power of thine anger? Even according to thy fear, so is thy wrath. So teach us to number our days, that we may apply our acts unto wisdom. Return, O Eternal, how long? And let it repent thee concerning thy servants. Who satisfy us early with thy mercy, that we may rejoice and be glad all our days. Make us glad according to the days wherein thou hast afflicted us, and the years wherein we have seen evil. thy work appear unto thy servants, and thy glory unto thy children. And let the beauty of the Eternal, our Elohim, be upon us, and establish thou the work of our hands upon us. Yea, the work of our hands, establish thou it. Amen.
Amen. Amen.
And
Beautiful.
then this psalm, which is a psalm written by Moses when he was in the wilderness
Yep.
with the children in Sinai. This psalm is only one written by Moses, and thus the oldest in the Psalter. From verses 7 to 12, we may judge that it was written at the end of the 38 years of wandering in the wilderness. It is a prayer for the new generation of Israelites who will enter the promised land. There are four parts of its messages. First, Moses describes the eternal of Elohim. Then it contrasts, he explores the brevity of man before Elohim. 4 keys consumption are used. 1, 1,000 years are like one day in Elohim. And 2, 1,000 years are like a watch in the night, 3 hours. The implication of these comparisons is simple. If 1,000 years is Elohim, or like a day or a night watch, man's life is like a vapor. 3, your life is like a particle swept away by a flood. Your life is like a blade of grass that sprouts, fades, withers, and dies in a day. Moses was most qualified to speak of death, since he witnessed an entire generation perish in the wilderness. The third part of the Psalms may be described as the condemnation of man. Moses speaks here of the wilderness experience. Finally, he concludes with a petition in which he asks the Eternal that the Israelites might be given Elohim words to do more time than is the work of taking the promised land. Amen.
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 Amen. Thank you, Gil. Amen. And before, if we should get cut off, tomorrow morning, the same line at 11 o'clock, we'll be keeping the Feast of First Fruits. Okay? Just want to make sure before we get disconnected or anything. A couple of important things in that psalm. A lot of people get hung up on the lifespan, 70 years or maybe 80, and saying, well, this person died at 67, so obviously he was not covenanted to the Most High. And making that's just a generalization. I mean, if somebody lives to 90, is that a curse? Because it's 70 or 80. I live to 93. Oh my goodness, I'm living beyond. I gotta jump out of a window because I'm exceeding my time here. It's just giving an approximation. And I know people who are obsessed over that. Well, he died at 53. He must have been cursed. Oh, he must have been this. He must have been, knock it off, okay? Knock it off. It's the quality of one's life, not the quantity of the years. Those people who are counting beans representing each year might very well be miserable in their 80 years. Doesn't mean that they have the quality that the eternal Yah wants us to enjoy, okay? So let's lighten up on that. And the other thing is, I spoke about this last week, in fact, about number my days. Teach me how to number my days. The word literally means to prepare or to appoint. Teach me to deal with each day, essentially. To number it, well, this is day 4. But teach me tomorrow will be day 5. No, it's talking about preparing. Let us prepare ourselves for the day to come. Just like when we're off to work, some of us put our shirt and tie combination. I worked in retail for over 30 years, so I had to match. Okay, got the thing going in the pocket square and the jacket pocket. We got to kind of get a sense of what we're wearing the next day, and that's me. And guys, not all guys do that, and ladies, you ladies, you like to do that too. Okay, so prepare each day, appoint each day, and that way things will not come suddenly upon us. because we have made preparations. Preparation is a very important concept throughout the scriptures, to be prepared for situations and to be able to deal with them as a result of that. It's good to have, it's just like with this virus thing, it's good to be over-prepared than under-prepared. You know, if you're over-prepared, you say, well, now I can share my excess. If you're under-prepared, you starve to death, or you don't have what you need and you get sick. So again, better to be overly so than underly so. You know, when the eternal Yahuwah judges us, I'd rather him saying, you know what, you could have lessened up on the gas and pumped the brakes a little bit. You kind of overdid it. I'd rather that than him saying, depart from me, I never knew you. You're a worker of lawlessness. You know, iniquity is lawlessness. We did that teaching about anomia, about anomia. Nomos in the Greek is law. Before that is always the antithesis of it. So, anomia, atheist, and atheist. Somebody who's against Elohim, right? Because theos is the Greek equivalent of Elohim. Okay, so it's better to be over prepared than under prepared. Is I think a pretty sound concept. All right. So thank you, brethren, Gil and Pat, for sharing. Anybody else there? Okay. Well, the subject I'm going to be talking about today, because we celebrated the new year, Aviv, which is the beginning of see that in chapter 12 of Exodus, Shemot, the beginning of our years, the beginning of the months. And so we begin with Aviv, with the green breaking the surface of the earth, reclaiming life over the wintry grave of death. You know, we come back to life. Spring is in the air. Spring back to life. Okay, and then we saw the 10th day of Aviv is the day in which we select, again, 10 being the number of the judgment of evaluation, the 10 words, the 10 commandments, which we'll be reading later, and 10 is symbolic of accountability. So on the 10th, the lambs came to Jerusalem that were to be offered during Pesach, okay? And Messiah came to Jerusalem. And again, sorry, it wasn't a Palm Sunday. It was really a Palm Friday. The 10th is always on that Friday. And then followed by a Shabbat. And for 4 days, Yeshua came into Jerusalem, and they questioned him for 4 days. Just like the lambs had to be evaluated. They should make sure there was no spot or blemish upon them, and that they were acceptable.
You entered access code 6.
Okay. So our conference call is over. Everyone's watching it now on the TV. Okay. So Messiah was evaluated for 4 days, and there was no leaven in him. There was no spot or blemish. And then we had the Pesach on Tuesday the 14th, and Messiah had his quote unquote Last Supper with them on Pesach, which he said, "I've longed to have this Pesach with you," and yet there are people who were somehow coming to the conclusion, well, it wasn't the Passover, you know. So instead of the bread that he broke was like a hoagie, it was like a challah bread or an Italian loaf, you know, which makes a better sandwich than matzah, but it's had to be matzot. No chametz, no leaven was allowed at that time. So we taught about that. We taught about the following day after Passover, the 15th, was Hag HaMatzot, which is the feast of matzah. No chametz, no leavening, the leaven of malice, which Paul addresses in 1 Corinthians 5, the whole chapter, short chapter. And chametz represents sin in its context. You know, reject the leaven of the Pharisees, the Pharisees, the false teachers. Weigh it, again, as we said in 1 Thessalonians 5:21, prove all things, test all things. We read in the book of Acts of the Berean community who evaluated what was being taught, evaluated, proved it, and came and said, you know what, this is right, this is correct. That's why we encourage you, 1 Thessalonians 5:21, prove all things, test all things. If something sounds incorrect or I've made a boo-boo or something, let us know. We'll discuss. Because a lot of teaching is erroneous. It's based on the traditions of man, which, again, the book of Gospel of Mark, chapter 7, really does Messiah, really good version in Mark 7 about the traditions of man. And this weekend is a good example of that. And with regards to Messiah's resurrection, he says, the sign I will give. In fact, there was 3 signs. Number 1, he said, destroy this temple, and in 3 days I'll raise it up again. I said, what are you talking about? Of course, he was talking about his body. And the other, the sign of Yonah, which was 3 days, 3 nights in the grave. So from Passover, first day of unleavened bread, the night to be much observed was the day when he was put into the tomb after he was crucified. And incidentally, as he died, there was a great earthquake. And then 3 days and 3 nights later, there was an earthquake on the Sabbath, and Messiah was risen after 3 days, 3 nights. So he didn't raise on Sunday morning. He raised on the end of the day part of the Sabbath in the evening. And the full moon, when it talks about the dawning, the dawn is really the full moon. So that, again, we'll go into that another time. But so we did that teaching, okay? And again, first fruits, we used to keep first fruits on the day of Messiah's literal resurrection, but the Moedim don't overlap. They don't overlap. So the Bikurim comes the following Yom Echad, which is tomorrow, which ironically is the 26th. So Feast of Unleavened Breads was from the 15th to the 21st. And the first day and the 7th day were Sabbaths. They were the annual Sabbaths. Remember, he was talking about, you shall keep my Shabbatot, my Sabbaths. It is a sign. What that meant is we have the weekly Sabbath every 7th day. And then divided in the spring and the autumn, we have 2 distinct collection of Moedim that describe the Messiah's first advent and the Messiah's second advent. Mashiach came as the Passover lamb. He died for our sins. He was resurrected. And it says, we're going to get to the text here in a minute, but from first fruits presentation tomorrow morning, we count off 7 Sabbaths. The day after the 7th Sabbath is Shavuot, Pentecost. And there are those that the tradition, rabbinic tradition, is that the Sabbath that's being discussed here is the first day of unleavened breads. And so Pentecost can be any day of the week at all. But here we obviously see the day after the 7th Sabbath, which would be Shabbatot, would be Shavuot, the Feast of Weeks, which can also be interpreted as the Feast of the Sabbaths, 7 Sabbaths, the completion, but also the sense of continuous motion going forward. So all these Moedim, which is what they called appointed times, Passover, first and 7th day of unleavened breads, tomorrow, which is first fruits, which is not technically a Sabbath, but we count from there to Shavuot, which is Yom Echad, which is a Sunday, which follows the regular Sabbath day. So we have a double Sabbath. So that Moed is a Sabbath, okay? So we have 3 Sabbaths, and there are 4 awaiting us in the autumn. There are 7 annual Sabbaths, 2 and 5, as well as the weekly Sabbath. So I don't mean to be complicated. On the one hand, you might think this is complicated. Others just might be saying this is basic ABCs. So I just wanted to not leave anybody behind in this teaching, okay? So here we are, first fruits, Yom HaBikurim, and I gave this the subtitle of Present Yourselves as Being Acceptable to Yah. And we're going to see that acceptance is really the key to this Moed, the idea of presenting and then being accepted. And it's really something that extends beyond the literal teaching of presenting barley, because on first fruits tomorrow, the Aviv, the first grain to mature, to be harvested, was the barley, and then 7 weeks later it's the wheat. And first fruits, and I'm going to show you some scriptures that talk about the general concept of first fruits, that it goes throughout the year. There's new wine, there's oil, there's wood. And the idea is, as you're reaping the harvest, you present to the Lord, make a presentation to the Lord of the tenth of that. So the Lord also says on these appointed times, don't appear empty-handed. So these are the days when we make our offerings to the Eternal. Okay? So now I'm going to the text of Leviticus 23, which, again, it might be kindergarten for a lot of us, but for those who don't know, Leviticus 23 lists the full spectrum of the Moedim, the appointed times, including the Sabbath. Sabbath is a Moed, it's an appointed time. And if anyone is important to you and you set up an appointment, you want to keep that appointment, right? If you don't, you're not showing faith. Well, that's legalistic to keep a literal appointment, isn't it? No, it's not. It's called faithfulness. It's called obeying, the eternal word. Even as Messiah did, so must we. If we love him, keep his commandments. And truly, to love the eternal, as it says in 1 John, Yochanan, it says that to love him, we show him how we love him by keeping his commandments. If you love me, keep my commandments. And the commandments are not a burden to us. They're not a weighted obligation. They're a joy. As it says in Isaiah, if you find joy in my Shabbatot, in my Sabbath, you'll find delight in the Sabbath as well as the giver of the Sabbath, the one who establishes the Sabbath, who is the eternal Yahuwah. Okay? Anyway, I'm going to start Leviticus. I'm just starting now, okay? This is the official start point, 41 minutes into this. So I just pray that you're being patient with me and not tapping your foot saying, get on with it, get on with it. Okay, I'm getting on with it. Leviticus 23, starting with verse 9 to verse 16. And the eternal Yahuwah spoke to Moshe, saying, speak to the Bnei Israel, to the children of Israel, and say to them, when you come into the land which I give you, and reap its harvest, then you shall present a sheaf of the first fruits. And the sheaf is an omer. Omer reshit, the first fruits, the first omer, wave is to be waved. But here we see a sheaf. And I know people are saying it should be a sheaf, not an omer. You shouldn't count the omer, you should count the sheaves. That's omer is the word in Hebrew. That is the sheaf, okay? All right? Okay, bring the sheaf of the omer of the first omer, is what it is, okay, of your harvest to the Kohen, who is the priest, okay? He shall wave the sheaf before the eternal Yah to be accepted on your behalf, okay? Again, acceptance, to be accepted on your behalf. We talk about a wave offering, right? We're presenting something to the eternal. It's like saying, here it is. Here it is. Whatever gesture was given as the wave offering, whatever it was, it's basically saying, take note. Hine, here it is. The Omer sheet. It's the first sheaf. Observe it, Father. This family is presenting this to you, and they're being faithful. They're doing what's required of them. And it's an elaborate ceremony. Very little details of exactly what happened is known to us. But that's what would happen. That's why it was a wave. It was showing, hey, you see somebody, down the, hey, Jerry, how you doing? How's it going? You kind of wave, you wave. Hey, let's get together. Let's, I know we can't get too close. It's got to be 6 feet or more. But maybe sometime we can do something. We can have a nice coffee, okay? That's a wave to get our attention, okay? To be accepted on your behalf. So again, the Kohen is the intermediary to show Yahuwah that the steward of his crops is doing right. On the day after the Sabbath, the Kohen shall wave it, which is tomorrow morning, and you shall offer it on that day. When you wave the sheaf, a male lamb of the first year, without blemish, as a burnt offering to Yahuwah. It's a grain offering, shall be 2/10 of an ephah of fine flour, mixed with oil, an offering made by fire to the eternal Yah, a sweet aroma for a job well done. When you get a sense of accomplishment, it's a sweet aroma. Wow, it was tough, but it's finished, and I feel good. I feel great that all this energy went for a good purpose. So a sweet aroma, and its drink offering shall be of wine 1/4 of a hin. Okay, and again, the covenant meal that we're presenting to the Eternal, just like we had with Passover and the Feast of Unleavened Breads. We have the bread and the wine. We had the cup and the matzah, which we have of the communion. So it transcends our lives, even as Abraham sat down with Melchizedek, gave him a tenth, and what do? They sit and have some bread and wine, a covenant meal. Okay? And we know that Melchizedek was an example, a type of Mashiach, Mashiach is our high priest. It's not a theoretical or an allegorical high priest. He is Kohen HaGadol, after the order of Melchizedek. And in fact, the Hebrew for after the order or in the order of Melchizedek literally is Devarti, which is upon my word, Melchizedek. Interesting. Hope you didn't know that, and that was really exciting for you. So upon my word, Melchizedek. So he's the Kohen, the pure Kohen. Levi became the priesthood because they stood as one against the apostasy. But Mashiach is not of the lineage of Levi. He's the Levi genealogy of Yehuda. But his priesthood is distinct because it's eternal. And those who would pursue him and follow him become Kohanim also in the order of Melchizedek. You might be part of the Levi. Name might be Levi or a variant of that. So you might actually be both. So, hey, good to you. 222, the 2 loaves. Okay. You shall neither eat bread nor parched grain nor fresh grain until the same day that you have brought an offering to your Elohim. So he gets served first. He gets the first. He gets the top of the best, the freshest, the best that we have to offer, and then we partake. Okay? It shall be a statute forever throughout your generations in all your dwellings. So whenever we hear that, statute forever throughout your generations in all your dwellings, it reminds us of that this is still going forward. Not until something happens, and it's happened, until February 2020. Okay, that's done. I guess we finished here. No, for all generations, in all of your dwellings, wherever you live, this is applying to you. Okay? And you shall count for yourselves from the day after the Sabbath, from the day you brought that sheaf of the wave offering, 7 Sabbaths, Shiva Shabbatot, the word for 7, which is often used to mean oath as well. 7 is completion. It's also the oath. The Be'er Sheva, you're all familiar with Beersheba, which is the well of the oath, or the well of sevens. And again, 7, continuous action, proceeding and going onwards, not resting and stopping and retiring. It's we stop on Shabbat, and then we get re-energized from Torah, and we go forward. Just as the Torah is read, as it says in Acts 15, the Moshe is read all over the place from Sabbath to Sabbath. The new Gentile converts are coming in. We will set apart these special ritual ordinances that they must obey to show that they are distinct from the rest of the pagans, that they are serious. They don't have to be circumcised. They have to believe. They have to follow the rituals and the traditions of purity, not man's traditions, but what it says in Torah. Okay, because Moses is read everywhere, from Sabbath to Sabbath. Okay, so Shabbat is the day of teaching, the day of learning, the day. It's a sign between us and the eternal. And in fact, that sign, that significance, which is based on the word sign, S-I-G-N, significance, is reflecting on our lives. And incidentally, before I mentioned 3 signs of Messiah, that he would destroy the temple, destroy this temple, and I will raise it up, 3 days and 3 nights. The third one was the sign over his head on the execution stake. I talked about this also in the last few weeks, that above his head, it said, Yeshua, Hanatzrati, the Melech HaYehudim. So it will be Yeshua, the Natzer, or of Nazareth, but the Natzer, which is more significant because he is the branch and we are Natzarim of the branch, okay? And king of the Jewish people. So it would say Yud He, Vav He. So again, that was the third sign. And again, people got ticked off. No, don't change that. Say that's what he said, not that that's what he is. Okay. I'm sorry about that. I left you, for those who are waiting for that third sign, I apologize. But again, the word sign, S-I-G-N, significance. Okay, so sign is significant, and it has significance, and it bears fruit. And we're talking about first fruits. We're talking about the significance of that. Okay, so continuing. Sorry about that. 7 Sabbaths you shall be completed. Count 50 days to the day after the 7th Sabbath. That's pretty easy to understand. Why are we keeping Shavuot on a Thursday? Why are we keeping Shavuot? Well, our fathers, the rabbinic tribe. Okay, so there's been so many people in different denominations who are saying, well, we never did it like that before. So I feel we're going to continue to do it our way. Okay? No. We need to get rid of the traditions of man because they're fighting against Elohim. Like Gamaliel says, hey, don't hassle these guys because, these different groups have come and gone over the years. So if this one is of that same ilk, it'll disappear on its own. But if it's genuine, then we will find ourselves fighting against the eternal Yah. So Gamaliel was a very wise individual in many ways. So he knew better. He may have had a kernel of truth. He might have believed to a certain extent. We don't really know. Of course, the rabbinic community is going to deny that because he was one of the great rabbis of the day. And guess who taught? Guess who he taught? He taught Rav Shaul, the Apostle Paul. He learned at the feet of Gamaliel, as I said a few weeks back also. I was talking about the anointed feet. Okay, the day of the 7th Sabbath, then you shall offer a new grain offering to Yahweh. So again, tomorrow, barley, 7 weeks, wheat. So we're going to make a good variety of bread. Oh, no. An Easter parade going down in my block. I apologize for that. It sounds like a version of Frost. Oh, hoppity. Okay, never mind. Okay, the first fruits, or the Omer. It's directly connected to Shavuot, Pentecost, as we see, and it's separated by 7 Shabbatot, and it's this day tomorrow serves as a bridge, and again, it will fall on Aviv 26, because you notice that there were no dates given. Unlike Passover and the first day of unleavened bread, and the last 7th day of unleavened bread, which is on the 14th, the 15th, and the 21st, respectively, the dates of first fruit observations depended upon a future, at the time, event. When you come into the land, do this. When you put the sickle to the grain, do this. When you come into the land, they are currently in the wilderness, hearing this instruction. So this didn't apply to them literally at this point. They had the Passover and the Hag HaMatzot in Egypt and on the way out of Egypt, right? So now they're in the wilderness. They don't have their own land. They don't have first fruits at this point. So we weren't given specific dates. They're currently in the wilderness, breathlessly anticipating the reality of this event. Gee, you're telling me we're going to have our own home, our own land, our own crops, and all we have to just do is present this, okay? As we know, they had quite a wait before them. As they got out of Egypt, came into the wilderness. It could have been a short stay, but they made it a marathon, right? So again, the gematria, the numerical value of first fruits, is 26. Okay? And we look at the name of the eternal Yahweh right there. We see that the Hey is a value of 5, the Vav 6, the Hey 5, and the Yod 10, so that comes out to 26. So the 26th has the great symbolism of the name of the eternal Yah, which is pretty cool. So just as the 14th, the Passover is 14, 2 times 7, the number of completion, the number of the oath. So we have this for us. Yud-Heh-Vav-Heh is presented in this day, okay? And again, it's all about acceptance, and it's all about the presentation too. Again, working in retail for 30 years, new merchandise comes in, you got to present, you got to not necessarily schmooze, but show the evidence, the hine, of why this is a good product. And you got to present it, say, well, I don't really know where it comes from. I don't really know what it's composed of. I guess you can like it. Maybe you like it, maybe not. No, you got to present it in a way that you know what you're talking about. You know what's going on here. So same thing, we present this offering to be accepted in a manner that we're not doing it shakily or unsure. We present ourselves. We make a stand before the Most High. Who can stand? Well, we can stand. We should be able to stand, okay? So it's all about acceptance. And wave the sheaf lifnei, before Yahuwah, lirtzon chem, okay, which is the word ratzon is in there. So wave the sheaf before the eternal Yah for acceptance. Ratzon, to be acceptable. We need to be accepted. And again, those people who preach a false, lower the bar standards. What do you have to be accepted? You said, and then people who are on the TV who are saying, all you have to do is follow after me. I fill in your name. I fill in your name. No, fill in your name. I, George. Okay, I, George. I'm really sorry, God. I'm really sorry, God. And I accept I accept Jesus as my personal Savior. Amen. You are saved. You are saved, sanctified, and you're going to be filled with the Holy Ghost. And that's all you got to do. And He did it all for you. So you just kind of behave yourself. If you mess up, don't worry about it. He's taking care of it all. So don't get any guilt trips. Don't let anyone tell you different. And they say that there's nothing you can do to make God either love you more or love you less. Thus saith Lucifer. We need to make sure that we present ourselves in a humble manner, of course, obvious. I'm not saying we parade with our chest puffed up, but we have to have confidence that He is our confidence. So when we make this presentation for acceptance, it's done not shakily, but with actions that are affirmative. Okay? Ratzon, acceptance, to accept. Okay? And then we're going to jump to Exodus 23, verse 19. The first of the first fruits of your land you shall bring to Beit Hashem, the house of the name of Yahweh, your Elohim. So again, we bring the best, freshest of the harvest. And again, it's a work of faith, right? Because you're giving Him the best initial thing, and you're trusting that the harvest is going to continue. It's going to continue. It's going to continue. Saying, hey, how can we give the best, the freshest right here? How can we give that to Him, and then we have nothing, or we have very little left, but He will continue to bless you and bless you and bless you. It's like a down payment. It's like paying rent to the landowner, right? We give him a tenth of our increase. That's what the tithe is. The tithe was always the produce. It was not cash. The only time it was cash temporarily was when people had to travel long distances. They would sell it, get money, and then buy it once they got to Jerusalem. So it's not about that. Our friend Jackson did a really good study about the tithe. What is the tithe? So it's the first of the first fruits of the land. Bring the best. Don't appear empty-handed. And we look at chapter 34, verse 26 of Shemot of Exodus. It says, Bechag HaKatsir, the feast of the harvest, Bikurei, of the first fruits. Reshit Bikurei, okay, the best, the first of the first fruits. We give Him the best. He will fill in. He will continue to be faithful, because He was faithful enough to give us the land, faithful enough to allow us to to plant and to get this much, and now he will continue to give us the increase. And again, in Exodus, we see different chapters devoted to different things. Chapter 11, where the death of the firstborn is foretold of the oppressor. Chapter 12 is the Passover instructions. And then we see in chapter 13, 1 through 16, we see the consecration of the firstborn of Israel. And okay, it says, Kadesh li chal bekur, which is consecrate to me every firstborn, bekur, and the plural is bekorim, the first fruits, the first evidence. Hine, behold, here it is. We must present that which is acceptable from our labor and our efforts. We give of him the first, off the top, we give it to him. And as Psalm 19, verse 14, again, about from us, from what comes from us. May the words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart, again, the connection, the mouth and the heart, the meditation and the words of the meditation, be acceptable, be pleasing in your sight, O eternal Yah, my rock, my redeemer. Again, it's Yeh le ratzon. It is, may they be pleasing, may they be acceptable. The word ratzon is to be pleased with, to satisfy, to delight, to show favor, good pleasure, acceptable, and approved. We need to be approved. We need to know that we have been approved. A lot of people are living their lives not really knowing what the story is. They're doing their best, and whatever happens, happens. We need to know that we are accepted because we present ourselves wholly to Yah as a wave offering. Hine, here am I. So we're going to see that as we continue to go forward. I'm looking to the book of Deuteronomy 26. And again, I should have mentioned to the new people that if you have a pen and paper, it's good to make notes, because I'm not going to say, no, everyone turn to Deuteronomy 26 and then wait 5 minutes before I keep going. I'm going to keep going and proceeding and make note of this. And also, this is live. We are live, but we are also going to be recorded. So show 21, you can look back at it and get the references here. Because again, what we're doing here is presenting you with a model of this message that you can go back and you can build upon it. You can take it in a different direction, explore some other avenue or aspect of this, and it's yours, man. There's no ownership of this. It's his word. So you want to take this whole message completely and say, this is what I'm presenting. That's fine. I don't have any problem with that. It's not mine to be. It's not mine in this first place. What I'm here doing, and I remember when I was first studying in ministry, they would say, in a message, in the sermon, you only give at most 3 scripture verses. At most. The rest is you talking about it. And that's fair enough, but that shouldn't be the model. That shouldn't be, oh, you did, because I tend to be more like 50, because it's the word that needs to go forward. As I speak the word, you're hearing his voice. That's what the word tells us through the great prophets. When the priests would speak, it's the voice of Yah that they're hearing, not my weak voice, but actually his voice. And it's not boasting, it's what it is. Whenever 2 or 3 are gathered in his name, there he is in our midst. How is that? By the words that we speak. That we're not talking about trivial matters, we're talking about him, we're talking about the righteousness and the holiness of the Most High. So that's the guarantee. Wherever 2 or 3 are gathered in my name, in my teaching, in my authority, not talking about fashion or talking about the coronavirus, but come together to talk about him, that his words are given voice and clean air to permeate and to reach, yes, and to hear. Faith comes from hearing. Hearing comes from the word. Okay. So Deuteronomy chapter 26, the first 11 verses, again, I talked about the extensive idea of first fruits, which is not just tomorrow. And in fact, some congregations don't even acknowledge tomorrow, they focus on Shavuot Pentecost as being the first fruits. And they're half right. But as we follow the calendar and we follow Leviticus 23, let us do that. And actually, there's first fruits after Shavuot, throughout the summer, before Yom Teruah, the first Moed, the first appointed time of the seventh month in the autumn. And again, Yom Teruah is the feast of the awakening blast of the shofar. A lot of people call it Rosh Hashanah, which is a misnomer because Rosh Hashanah happens the first of Aviv. This is the beginning. Oh, well, the rabbis say, well, you can do what the rabbis say. Sometimes they're, but sometimes not. Okay, so again, this is spoken in the broader idea, the larger picture of all of our first fruits throughout the year. And it shall come to pass when you come into the land, again, it's a future event, when Yahuwah your Elohim is giving you as an inheritance and you possess it to dwell in it, that you should take some of the first of all the produce. Again, it's not just speaking about barley. It's not even just speaking about wheat. It's about everything. Some had really good orchards and would have great fruit. Some would have alfalfa or some other thing. We should still present the first fruit. The produce of the land that he gave us, he deserves the first offering of it. A lot of you haven't heard this before, and I'm sorry, but this is what it is. And an accurate biblical calendar will show you that and show you the other offerings, and we'll get to that another time as well. But we need to present. We need to present ourselves, present what we have, present our work. As I do these studies, I present them to the eternal Yahuwah. And as I'm doing it, I'm adding things all the time. The Lord gives me a lot of ideas as I'm speaking from these things. A lot of what I teach is off the pages, as you may or may not know, with my condition, with my hands are not so good. I have all my scripture verses on note paper here, so I don't have to go thumbing. You don't want to see me thumb through the Bible with that super rice paper, thin. It takes a while. So this would be a bit of a test of your patience. So anyway, proceeding. It says, when you come into the land, he's giving you as an inheritance, and possess it and dwell in it. So he's giving it to us. We're possessing it. We're dwelling in it. And now the produce of the ground, which you shall bring from your land that Yahuwah, your Elohim, is giving you, and put it in a basket and go to the place. We've got to transport it, put it in a little basket, where the eternal Yahuwah, your Elohim, chooses, again, that would be Jerusalem, to make his name abide, the place where his Torah emanates. For from Zion shall go forth Torah, and the word of Yahweh from Yerushalayim, as I said earlier. You shall go to the one who is Kohen, the priest, in those days, and say to him, I declare today to Yahweh your Elohim that I have come to the country which Yahweh swore to our fathers to give us. Then the Kohen, the priest, shall take the basket out of your hand and set it down before the altar of Yahweh your Elohim. And you shall answer him and say before Yahweh your Elohim, my father was a Syrian about to perish, and he went down to Egypt and dwelt there, few in number. And interesting, you go down to Egypt, but you go up to Yerushalayim. There's a sense of aliyah. To go up is the holy sanctified. To go down is to go down to the pit, to Sheol, the place of judgment, the place of death. And a good example of that is when Rebecca was coming to meet Isaac. She was sitting on the back of a camel, which was the highest place that you could, obviously they didn't have planes working then, or really tall trucks or whatever. So the highest position a person can literally be is on the back of a camel, the largest animal in the land. That's why, it's easier for a camel to go through the eye of a needle. Let's take the biggest thing. It's like saying, well, today we would say it's easier for a blue whale to go through a hoop than for a rich man to enter the kingdom. Okay, so, but it says that she looked up to see Isaac. So even though she's in the highest position, she looks up to see. So again, it's metaphoric. The blessing of marrying Yitzhak and being part of the patriarch and remembered forever, Rivka. So we're looking up, even if we're already at the highest spot. We look down to condescend or to fall. Okay, so anyway, I didn't mean to go too far into that. Dwelt there few in number, and there we became a nation, great, mighty, and populous. But the Egyptians mistreated us, afflicted us, and laid hard bondage on us. Then we cried out to Yahweh, Elohim of our fathers, and Yahweh heard the voice and looked on our affliction, our labor, and our oppression. So the eternal Yah brought us out of Egypt with a mighty hand and an outstretched arm, with great terror and with signs and wonders. And he brought us to this place, and has given us this land, a place flowing with milk and honey. And now behold, Hine, evidence coming. I have evidence. I have brought the first fruits of the land, which you, O eternal Yah, have given me. So again, the acknowledgement is not how good a farmer we are, but acknowledges that this is his land, and these are his produce, and we give him thanks. So we present ourselves wholly to the eternal in the process. We set down the first fruits and present ourselves, as we said earlier in the earlier verses. Then you shall set it before Yahweh your Elohim and worship before Yahweh your Elohim. So again, it's like we're renting in this, we're paying our rent or our security or whatever. So barley isn't the only fruit. This is speaking of general terms, which include the first fruits of all of the land, followed by wine, new oil, wood, cattle, etc., even tomatoes and all of your crops. But this is the primary evidence that our provisions have been met. Yahweh Yirah, remember the Lord's provision shall be seen. And here's the evidence of it. Hine, this basket. I'm making a presentation of the first fruits, the first of all. Our offering should always be the best, not leftovers, always the first, the freshest, the best. And our offerings are given in gratitude in response to our needs being met. He's the one, Yahuwah Yirah. The provisions have been met. We are in want of nothing. He is our shepherd. We shall not want. We shall not lack for any good thing, because the Father of lights gives us the best. So again, if we are to present ourselves and present the primary evidence, who is the first and who is the primary? And I'm going to read from Colossians 1. Obviously, you pretty much know where I'm going with this. Colossians 1, I'm reading from verse 15 to 23, okay? He, being Messiah Yeshua, is the image of the invisible Elohim, the firstborn over all creation. For by him all things were created that are in heaven and that are on the earth, visible and invisible, whether thrones or dominions or principalities or powers, all things were created through him and for him. So by him, through him, for him. And he is before all things, and in him all things consist. And he is the head of the body, the kahal, the ecclesia, the community, who is the beginning, the firstborn from the dead, that in all things he might have the preeminence. It pleased the Father that in him all the fullness shall dwell, and by him to reconcile all things to himself, by him, whether things on earth or things in Hashemayim in the heavens, having made peace through the blood of his execution stake. So again, all things throughout this portion here is mentioned 8 times. Again, the significance of 8 is eternity, is beyond the established reality. One might even say that tomorrow is the 8th day, the first day of the week after the Sabbath, which is the first day of the week, but the day after the Sabbath, if you understand that it's like the 8th day of his activity in our lives. It is eternal, and the 8th significant of all things, showing that he has the preeminence. It's up to us to acknowledge it and say amen to it and embrace it and not haggle over it or debate over it. So all things is mentioned 8 times in that short portion. It continues. And you who were once alienated and enemies in your mind by wicked works, and that's lawlessness, looters, rioters, lawless behavior, which we see from time to time. But it also means an anti-Torah perspective. Oh, it's not for me, it's legalism. Okay, you're just like the looter. You're just like the rioters and arsonists, because you're refraining from the truth, and you're causing others to follow your incorrect path. Okay? In your mind by wicked works, yet now he has reconciled in the body of his flesh. And again, as I spoke before, his flesh is the Besar. The Besar. The gospel is Besar. So interesting that his flesh, on the Passover, he gave us his body through the matzah, the unleavened matzah, which has no chametz, no sin, but pure. And it is the core of the gospel message. Okay? The body of his flesh through death, which shows the evidence, flesh. It's something tangible you can touch, as Thomas touched and believed after touching. It was material. Body of his flesh through death, to present you holy. Again, like the first fruit wave offering. Okay? He's reconciled in the body of the flesh through death to present you holy, kadosh, like the wave offering, and blameless, no chametz, and above reproach in his sight. Above reproach. So again, those who are preaching a compromised gospel, saying, oh, we're all sinners saved by grace, and grace is something we don't deserve, but we get without behaving any particular way. It's just something, that we get. It's a nice little fringe benefit. Okay, they're preaching that, right? But he's saying that we are to be spotless and above reproach. Above reproach. And that when that phrase comes out in the world, saying usually followed by a sigh. Who is above reproach? Well, we better be not tempted to act foolish or act stupid. Again, the sins of forgiveness are a momentary lapse of reason. You're driving along, somebody cuts you off, you say, say a thing here or there, or get angry or whatever. That's a momentary lapse. You pray, you get back in line. A sin of adultery or murder or theft. This is a slide down into the abyss. This is behavior that is uncalled for and uncharacteristic of those who are covenanted to the eternal. Okay? So above reproach. We need to be above reproach. When people think of you, think of Cynthia, Cynthia would never say that. We should never do that. Her character speaks volumes without her having to even open her mouth. We just trust that Cynthia is going to be faithful in anything. She's not going to be a tattle or a rat. She's going to be faithful and the best friend you could have. So hang out with Cynthia. If she'll hang out with you, that is. Okay. Above reproach in his sight. The one to whom we present ourselves for acceptance needs to know that this is an inner working, being above reproach. It's not doing something to be seen doing right. It's something to be thoroughly doing right. If indeed you continue in the faith, grounded and steadfast, and are not moved away from the hope of the gospel, the Besar Tov, the Besar. So we're above reproach if we continue in the faith, grounded and steadfast, and not moved away from the hope of the gospel, which you heard. Faith comes from hearing from the word of Yah, which was preached to every creature under heaven, of which I, Paul, became a minister. And then I'm going to look from Hebrews chapter 12, starting with verse 22 to 23. But you have come to Mount Zion, to a city of the living Elohim, El Chai, the heavenly Yerushalayim, to an innumerable company of Malachim, of angels, to the general assembly of the Kahal Bir Koreh, which is translated as Church of the First Fruit. Okay, Kahal Bikurei, the congregation, the community of the firstborn, who are registered in heaven, the book of life. We are registered. We sign the registry with our purity. To Elohim, the judge of all, to the spirits of just men, and that I'm not saying just men, no women, just as in justice-seeking men, made perfect. We don't like to talk about that. So again, I'm giving you some evidence here. Jude, the 24th verse says, To him who is able to keep you from stumbling and to present you faultless before the presence of his glory with exceeding joy, acceptable, meeting his immaculate, perfect standard. It's excellent, this standard. It needs to be our standard. Be holy, for I am holy. We need to at the very least, aspire and not saying, okay, I'm going to lie, I'm going to cheat. It's expected of me, so I guess I got to do this. Exodus 34, verse 2. So be ready in the morning and come up in the morning of Mount Sinai and present yourself to me. This is speaking to Moshe. And present yourself to me there on the top of the mountain. So the top of the mountain is the highest expectation, the symbol of the Kadoshim, of the holy ones. You know, as it says at the end of 139, Psalm 139, search me, O Elohim, know my heart, try my thoughts. Know my thoughts. If there's anything wicked, get rid of it. If there's any chametz lingering in my thoughts, not in my actions, but in my thoughts. You know, he didn't, massacre a busload of children. The things that he's considering is in his thought process. You know, gee, I really would love to give that guy a piece of my mind. But in my case, if I gave him a piece of my mind, what would I be left with? Not much. Okay, so I can't afford to give anyone a piece of my mind. I only get a piece left. You get what I'm saying? Okay. But the point is, if there's any offensive way in me, get rid of it. In my thinking, search my thoughts, search my heart. They're both internal. They haven't been, I'd love to slam this guy in the head. I haven't done it. I thought about it. So get rid of those thoughts. Gee, she's really hot, man. I wish under the right conditions, if she and I were the two sole survivors of a blast and we need to repopulate the earth, it doesn't go beyond that. It says, okay, nip it in the bud. Okay, it's done. Okay, if there's any thoughts, search my heart and my thoughts, not my resume of my activity or of my actions that have been inappropriate and downright evil. So let's get to a deeper understanding. We're accountable for who we are. We're to be above reproach, presented as kadosh, faultless before the presence of the Most High. So I'm using all these references. I made all these connections to where we need to be. I hope you understand and appreciate that and go back and revisit this. We're going up to the mountain. If we're going up to the mountain, number one, we got to wear the right shoes. Our feet need to be shod with the preparation of habesar, of the gospel, Besar Tov. So we got to get our right mountaineering gear on. And in other words, we don't just stumble up wearing flip-flops. We have to have the right gear. We have to have the right preparation for this climb. I'm going up to the mountain. Okay, you look like you're ready. You got all the right gear. Do we have all the right gear? Do we have the gear? Or do we have to, panic because we don't have it all together? We're going up to the top. The book of Joshua, chapter 24, 1. Again, the idea of assembling and presenting. It says, then Yehoshua gathered all the tribes of Israel to Shechem and called for the elders of Israel, for their heads, for their judges, for their officers, and they presented themselves before Elohim. We must all be willing to present ourselves to Yahweh. Reporting for duty. You give your salute. When people talk about we shouldn't be shaking hands anymore, how about a salute? There you go. It's a military thing. Well, this is war. We're at war against an invisible virus. We're also at war with invisible agents and those that might influence our thinking, but never our actions. Come on, guys. Don't give the adversary a foothold in your life. Don't allow it to happen. Don't have that regret. Isaiah 6, verse 8. Also I heard the voice of Yahweh saying, whom shall I send, and who will go for us? I mentioned this earlier. Then I said, here am I, send me. But literally, the here am I is hineni. Here am I, which is behold, hine, which is behold, which I'm always using that. One of my favorite Hebrew words, Shamar is another one, the keeping, of the giving, the observing, the guarding. And the hine, which means I'm giving you evidence. It means behold, exhibit A. It's not saying, well, trust me. No, I don't trust you. Show me, as Yaakov, the book of James, his name is Yaakov. Yaakov says, show me your faith in action, not just, oh yes, I'm a very faithful, humble person. I'm very humble. I'm so humble. Let me see you on a day-to-day thing, and I don't know about that, because we must walk as Messiah walked. And who was more humble than Messiah? He was the perfect example of humility, not pride. So hine, which literally means behold I. So it's like present your presence, presence, not presence like gift wrapped, but your presence. And in the Hebrew, the presence of Yahweh is referred to as the face, panim. So present your face. Say, here am I. Look at my punim. It's me. It's me. I'm here to help. It never hurts to help. Once we present ourselves, how do we know if we will be accepted? Say little rhetorical questions here. I ask myself. Okay. And I'm going to give you some answers for that. Philippians 5, verse 8 says, for you were once darkness, but now, once darkness, now light. It's different. It doesn't shift back and forth. That's why it talks about the Father of lights dwells in perfect light, unapproachable light. There's no shade of variance. It's not a chance of rain. It's not sunny today, cloudy tomorrow. It's the same. And he says, be holy because I am holy. Be kadosh. I'm kadosh. Okay, so we are to be accountable to each other. We need to be compatible with each other. Okay? But now you are light in Yahweh. Walk as children of light. For the fruit of the Spirit is in all goodness, righteousness, and truth. Finding out what is acceptable to Yahweh. So we need to find out what is acceptable. What is acceptable? Okay. It's worth doing. Worth investigating. We skip to verse 27 of Philippians 5. Messiah seeks to present her, the wife, but because Paul uses the analogy of the wife being the kahal, the congregation, and the husband being Messiah. So Messiah seeks to present her to himself a glorious ecclesia, a glorious kahal, a glorious community of faith, not having a spot or wrinkle or any such thing. Okay? Nothing like that. No compromise. Nothing. Pure. Like those lambs evaluated for the 4 days before Pesach. Any such thing. But that she should be holy and without blemish. Fully kadosh. Fully kadosh. No spot, no wrinkle. Okay? Okay? By obeying Elohim, we don't become legalists. We become obedient, faithful people. 1 Timothy 2, 2 and 3. Lead a quiet life, a peaceable life, in all goodness and reverence. For this is good and acceptable in the sight of Elohim our Savior. This is good. This is tov, and it is acceptable. It is good in our sight, in the sight of Elohim our Savior. It doesn't matter if it's good in my sight. Is it good in his sight? You don't have to try to impress me. You have to impress Yahweh. You have to impress him as you present yourself. And you present yourself, which means you willingly do so. Nobody's pushing or shoving you, forced baptisms or whatever. You are presenting yourself. And your knees should not be knocking because you have confidence. He is our confidence. And as a result, we have confidence. Hebrews 12, verse 28 says, let us have grace by which we may serve Elohim acceptably with reverence. Okay? Let us have the grace by which we can serve Elohim. The power. We get grace through faith. Not of anything that we can do to it doesn't come from us. It doesn't emanate from us. So we can have grace through faith and power and strength, because grace teaches us to say no to ungodliness, by which we may serve Elohim acceptably with reverence. 1 Peter 2:5, offer up spiritual sacrifices acceptable to Elohim for Yeshua, the Messiah. Acceptable. Acceptable. He sets the standard. He has the right to do that. 2 Corinthians 11, verses 2, the second part of that verse, which he says, I betrothed you to one husband, that I may present you as a chaste virgin to Messiah. So again, we need to be presented as pure, not conflicted, because this day and age, we have this weird concept of propriety. We used to have, the heroes would have the white hats, the bad guys, the black hats, easy to determine. Then all of a sudden, Clint Eastwood shows up, and he's the antithesis. He's the good guy, bad guy. We don't know. We don't know what his motives are, but he's killing people that look really bad. So he's lesser bad. So that means he's the hero. The anti-villain, the anti-hero is what's been presented lately. Flaws and all, not being shown as perfect, as being, got all his act together. He might very well rob that bank if the other criminal didn't rob it first. So that's the kind of conditions that we're living in today. In fact, I remember a criticism of Tolkien's writings about Aragorn is just too good. He's just too good. Why isn't he conflicted? Why doesn't he want the ring to rule or whatever? The idea of something being pure and holy, kadosh, uncompromising, and above reproach is so alien to us, because we've opened up Pandora's box. We trust nobody. When I was growing up, they said trust no one over 30. And now that I've doubled that, that I don't believe that anymore. But the whole era of mistrust was planted, in the 60s and the 70s. Trust nobody, everybody, do what you want to do and all that stuff. Anyway, I digress. Chapter 20. Now, this is the important verse that is really the cornerstone of my presentation. Okay, Yochanan, chapter 20. I'm reading from verse 16 and 17. This happens after Messiah's resurrection, when Miriam of Migdal is checking things out. Where's my Lord? And Yeshua says to Miriam Migdal, Miriam. And she turns and says to him, Rabboni, which is to say teacher, which is to say great teacher. Yeshua said to her, do not cling to me, which literally means don't restrain me. I used to think that he was like spirit, and if she went to touch him, her hand would go right through him. That's not what he's saying. Do not restrain me. Do not restrain me, for I have yet to send to my Father. But go to my brethren and say to them, I am ascending to my Father and your Father, and my Elohim and your Elohim. So what is happening here? He's the first fruits from the dead. He needs to present himself to the Father as that wave offering. He needs to do that of himself. He is the resurrection and the life. He is the first of the first fruits of the dead, from the dead. So this is a key understanding. John chapter 20, 16, 17. Understand that. He's not saying, don't touch me. I'm ticklish. Don't touch me. It's very disrespectful. He's saying, don't restrain me. I've got to present myself to the Father. And then he says, I am ascending. So how is he going to present him? He's ascending to the Father. This isn't the ascension, which takes place much later. But this is the right thing for him to do right now. He has to present himself to the Father as an acceptable wave offering, as first fruits from the dead. It was essential that no one restrain him or delay him in that. So that's what he was talking about. And again, that's the keystone verse of my presentation today, that he needs to present himself to the Father as an acceptable offering. So we are now being called to do nothing less than that, presenting ourselves to the Father. We may not be ascending to do that, but we need to present ourselves as impeccable characters in our characters. Okay, we have to be impeccable. We have to be doing our best and presenting ourselves as we truly are. And I go to Romans chapter 12, the first two verses, which, again, you'd probably figure I'd be going here. So I beseech you, therefore, brethren, by the mercies, the tender mercies of Elohim, that you present your bodies as living sacrifice, holy, acceptable to Elohim, which is your reasonable service, and not to be conformed to this world, not to be transformed, not to be I'm sorry, not to be conformed to this world, but to be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Okay, not conformed to this world, but transformed to a renewed state of mind, that you may prove, and again, it's proof, it's hine, that you may prove what is the good and acceptable and perfect will of Elohim. It's his perfect will, it is acceptable, that we may prove what is acceptable. So here we wanted proof of how we can be acceptable. I've been reading these verses here. So provide the evidence, the hine. We jump to the 14th chapter of Romans, verse 18. For he who serves Messiah in these things is acceptable to Elohim and approved by men. So as we continue to do things of great integrity, helping others, being visibly exhibiting the ethics, the ethical standard of absolute, the ethical standard which is immutable, which there's no excuses for. There is a standard. We need to meet the standard. Again, those momentary lapses, that's what's called a transgression. Overt sin, high-handed sin. Again, my wave offering of saying, hey, Lord, see how evil I am, gathering sticks on the Shabbat when I was told not to, do it in a high-handed manner. I'm doing it. I know you're telling me not to do it, but I do it anyway, and that it caused him his life, right? Was it just because he was gathering sticks and he should have been sleeping and resting on the Sabbath? No. He was being wicked. He was breaking the Sabbath. He was breaking the Torah. He was rendering the Torah null and void to him. So, okay. Okay, as he is, so must we be. As he is, so must we be. That is our goal. Mashiach is the goal at which the Torah aims. Romans 10:4, when it says, Christ is the end of the law, which sounds like he put an end to it. But no, the word is telos, which is a goal. Messiah is the goal at which Torah aims. 1 Corinthians 15, I'm going to read from 20 to 23. But now Messiah is risen from the dead and has become the first fruits of those who have fallen asleep. So first fruit occurs after Passover and unleavened bread. It doesn't overlap or conflict with these things. So now we can have full leaven, we can have full bread, and so on. It doesn't conflict with Hag HaMatzot because the seventh day has come and gone, and we're not concerned about baking ingredients anyway. The chametz needs to remain out. The leaven in our lives needs to continue to go forward. Again, those 7 days of unleavened bread are set in motion, that we need to continue to walk unleavened. So as we walk through Moedim, from the beginning of the year, we accumulate. It's like I have a little shopping cart. Okay, we have Mashiach, our Passover lamb. Okay, we have the unleavened bread of sincerity and truth, matzah. Okay, we have the first fruits of the resurrection. Okay, Messiah at his time and us eventually in our time, and we just accumulate them. We don't toss them in our rearview mirror. Oh yeah, I remember the Passover. Yeah, it was great, or it wasn't so great. Whatever it is to you. If you're carnally minded, it's a pain in the neck maybe. To have to eat matzah for a week is too much for some to bear. Let alone what it really requires of your life to carefully observe the ethical teaching of the matzah. Yeah, exactly. Okay. So Messiah is risen. So I was thinking of the analogy of bread cooking, baking, right? It rises, the dough rises with the yeast. So today we can bake that bread with the yeast to make it full and glorious. And in fact, at the end of the feast of weeks, in 7 weeks, in 7 Sabbaths down the road, we present 2 loaves of yeast-filled bread, which is full, abundant, and glorious. It's bread that is made fully what it needs to be, fully its full stature, just like Messiah, the suffering servant, and now what Messiah is now. He's full and glorious. Okay, for since by man came death, by man also came the resurrection of the dead. For as in Adam all die, so in Messiah all shall be made alive. Okay, but each one in his own turn, his own order. Messiah the first fruits, afterward those who are Messiahs at his coming. So here it clearly talks about the two events. In the spring, the first fruits, tomorrow morning, but he resurrected last Shabbat, towards the end of Shabbat. And for us, we have Yom Teruah coming in the 7th month, the first day of fall, the 7th month, a Moed, Shabbat. It's an appointed time, so it is the 4th Sabbath of the year, the 4th of the annual Sabbaths. Verse 49, and as we have borne the image of the man of dust, we shall also bear the image of the heavenly man. So we will bear his image. Now, what does that mean? His characteristics, but they become much more than that. We're bearing his image, his reputation. Don't take the name in vain. Don't take his teaching, who he is, in vanity. Okay? 2 Corinthians 3:18. You bear the image of the heavenly man, We have the man of dust, but now we must bear the image of the heavenly man. We must be as he is. Walk as he walked. And we're not just talking about taking a stroll. To walk, halakha, is Torah observance. To truly understand the living Torah, we must ingest the living Torah of Pesach and Hag HaMatzot. Eat the bread of life. Drink the blood of the covenant. You must do that. That's why Pesach is so important. Okay? It says, but we all, with unveiled faces, behold as in a mirror the glory of Adonai, the glory of the Lord, as being transformed into the same image. Interesting. From glory to glory, just as by the Ruach Elohim, the Ruach Yahuwah. Okay, so we are to be transformed in the renewing of our minds into the same image as the heavenly man. We're being transformed into that same image, that same projection, that same thing that's discernibly true and honest, that we can see, taste, touch, and feel. And hear. Do I get all the senses there? I think I did. It's tangible. He's tangibly evident in our lives. We can talk about the spiritual dimension, which is the behavioral issue, but our bodies must produce the fruit of truth by our behavior. I can't say, now I'm going to let my left lung do this or my right lung do that, or you can't see the interior me, but you can see the exterior me. You can see what I'm doing, and that's what we're talking about. Okay, we must be transformed to the same image, from glory to glory. 1 Corinthians 13, verse 12. Now we see in a mirror very dimly or darkly, but then we shall see him face to face. Now I know in part, but then I shall know just or exactly as I am known. So then again, that will be at the resurrection. It all happens in order. Messiah was raised on that day, specifically during the first fruits time, and we will be resurrected at our appointed time. Okay, I go to 1 John chapter 3. Beloved, now we are B'nai Elohim. We are the children of Yah, and it has not yet been revealed fully what we shall be. But we know that when he is revealed, we shall be like him, for we shall see him as he is. We will be like him. What does that mean? We will be like him. We will see him as he is because we will be like him. We will be compatible. The spiritual dimension is unseen today for us. But then it'll be obvious, and we will see him because we are like him. Now, what does it mean to be like him? Is there a family resemblance? I remember there was a great song, My Father's Eyes. I think Amy Grant used to sing that with Michael W. Smith. I think they wrote that together. My Father's Eyes. Do we have that resemblance? Do we have our Father's eyes? Do we have some familial resemblance that is required, that the word is describing here? I'm going to read from Romans chapter 8. I'm reading 22 to 23, and then 29 and 30, okay? For we know that the whole creation groans with birth pangs. Again, the idea of giving birth to the fruit, the firstborn. Okay? Groans with birth pangs together until now. Not only that, but we also, who have the first fruits of the Spirit, even we ourselves groan within ourselves, eagerly waiting for the adoption, the redemption of the body. And then I'm skipping to 29. For whom he foreknew, he also predestined to again be conformed. You know, everyone is talking about nonconformity. Well, I ain't going to do that because I don't want to be like them, or I want to be my own self. You know, conformity takes on a really negative connotation. But the type of conformity that the Eternal is offering us is to become like him. That's the type of conformity I think we can all say, okay, you're offering us the opportunity to be like you, to be like Mashiach, the risen Messiah. Well, for whom he foreknew, he also predestined to be conformed to the image of his Son, that he might be the firstborn among many brethren. So Mashiach is now referring to us as his family members, not just servants, not just Talmudim and students, but brothers and sisters. Okay. Moreover, whom he predestined, these he also called. And whom he called, he also justified. And those he justified, he also glorified. So again, that family of four couplet. So the growth from one to next, just like we read, from glory to glory to glory to glory. From one state of elation to the next. Hebrews 2. And again, the brethren. Okay, let me just finish this. Hebrews 2, chapter 10 to 13. For it was fitting for him. In other words, it was appropriate. It was exactly in line with his thinking and his doing. For whom all things, and by whom are all things. Again, continuing the sentiment from Colossians 1. And by whom are all things, in bringing many sons to glory, to make the captain of their salvation perfect through sufferings. For both he who sanctifies and those who are being sanctified are all of one. Okay? So again, that familial connection there. Once we are sanctified, we are like the one who sanctifies, because now we are one. We've been purchased. We are now part of the family. We are part of the family of one, echad. For which reason he is not ashamed to call them brethren, saying, I will declare your name to my brethren in the midst of the assembly. I will sing praise to you. Jump down to verse 17. Therefore, in all things, again, like what it says in Colossians 1, all things, 8 times. In all things, he had to be made like his brethren. So interesting. Now we have to be made like him, but first he had to be made like us. A body you have prepared for me. He had to become like us first. He had to be made like his brethren, that he might be merciful and faithful high priest in things pertaining to Elohim, to make propitiation for the sins of the people. So in order for him to know what it was like to experience life, because hey, wait a minute, you're Elohim, you're God. How can you possibly know what I'm going through? How can you possibly feel the pain that I'm going through right now? Well, he said, okay, check this out. And of course, Messiah came, a body prepared for him, and the call was not diminished, and he set the example that we ought to follow. He didn't do and keep Torah so that he can show us that only God can do this. See, you can't do this. What kind of foolishness is that? You know, how could you love an Elohim, a deity, who gives you something that you can't do, you can't perform, and yet is going to judge you by that standard? What? Come on now. It's like studying for a Spanish regents, and when you get the test, it's in German. Hey, wait a minute. This is unfair. But Elohim meets us. He became like us so that now we can become like him. We can become like him. The image, bear the same image, the characteristics, Be holy, for I am holy. Walk as he walked. Okay, what he did, you do. What he thought, you think. And this is all part of the growing process. Are we still really big milk drinkers, or are we preparing solid foods? Come on now. Okay, the redeemed share a common destiny with Messiah as family, as brothers and sisters of Messiah. He is the big brother. He is the head of the household. Dad puts him in charge. And again, in the story in Matthew chapter 12, 46 to 50, when Messiah is preaching and somebody's at the door saying, hey, your mother and your brothers are here. They want to take you home because they thought he lost his mind. He's got this God complex, apparently, and he's just talking way beyond who my flesh and blood little boy should be doing. Let's just take him home. I think he's overdoing it here. And what does Messiah say? Who is my mother and my brother and my sister? Whoever does the will of my Father in heaven is my brother, my sister, and my mother. Those are my family. Those who do the will of my Father, because he's doing the will of the Father. So again, we share that bond of family. Because if you're walking in Elohim, you are his begotten. You are his child who loves you. And, it's like when daddy comes home and you have two kids. One runs to greet him. The other one runs into his room and slams the door because he's ashamed of something. What's going on here? There's two different reactions. One obviously is part of the family, and one would love to run away from the family responsibilities. So walk as he walked. Okay? So we are to be like him. He's the son of Elohim, Ben Elohim. We are to be B'nai Elohim. We are to be the children of Elohim. He is the light, the great light, and we are lights in this world also. We are lights in this world also. The sun, the chemesh, which is the same word as the word we get servant from. So the sun, the greatest light, serves everyone else, gives us the light and the heat, etc., etc. But that sun is part of the same cosmos. The moon and the other celestial lights, they're still one. They're still the same luminaries in the heavens. They're echad. They all work. They all do what they need to do. So yeah, they're different in some ways, but the same in the important, essential ways. So we need to be like Messiah in the essential ways. Not the fact that he can walk through walls and he can do, through his ruach, be in us. We can't quite pull that yet. I can't quite, project my spirit to be in my wife or whatever. Can't do that. But the essential ethical standards, which are immutable, cannot be compromised or cheaped down. We got to stand with them. We got to be above reproach. Galatians 2:20. This is Shaul again saying, I've been crucified with Messiah. It is no longer I who live, but it is Messiah who lives in me. And the life which I now live in the flesh, in the Besar, in the gospel, I live by faith in the Son of Elohim who loved me and gave himself for me. Whatever he is, we are to be like him. He became like us. Now it's our turn to become like him. He gave us the standard. First Peter talks about the tracing. He gave us an example that we are to follow. Wow. He gave us the example. He's not saying, be perfect. He's saying, I will set the standard. I will set the example for you. And then you are to be without wrinkle or blemish. 1 Corinthians 6:15. Do you not know that your bodies are members of Messiah? He who is joined to Adon Yeshua is one spirit with him. 1 John 2:6 says, he who says he abides in him should himself also walk just as he walked. Again, put your money where your mouth is. Oh, yes, I abide in the Lord. Well, where is this evidenced in your life? I know some of the stands that you make, and they're not really godly standards. So you're saying that you're abiding in him, and that you're content. And again, A lot of people will not like what I'm saying because they're saying, well, you're judging. You're judging. Don't judge lest you be judged. Well, that's true. But the word also says judge with righteous judgment. And we should not be seeking to make enemies. We should be seeking to make brethren, that we may win people as brothers and sisters. That's the goal. We shouldn't be browbeating anybody. We should be extending, preaching the truth in love, and win a brother, win a sister to him. Set the standard, not a compromise. Well, I know what he's saying, but I know how he lives. I know what he does. That shouldn't be. Our words should be genuine. What I'm saying to you has got to be the way I feel, the way everyone's talking about how they feel, and the feelings dominate our lives. And our feelings can vary from time to time, but the truth must pervade every avenue of our lives. We must be children of light, and in the light there is no darkness. We have fellowship with one another, and the blood of Messiah cleanses us from all sin, all the things that need to be eradicated in our lives. His life is to be our life. His lifestyle is our lifestyle. The way that he did business is the way that we do business. Okay? We are to be joined to his identity, anointed and purpose-driven, with a power that is not of this world. This power is always there. Whether we avail ourselves of it or not, it's there. So if we are kadosh and walk in a kadosh way, holy way, this power will be part of who we are. So it's there whether we believe it or not. We are first fruits of this generation, found in him and called to serve. And we think of Elijah. Eliyahu went up and he left his anointing to Elisha, along with the double blessing. Remember, Elisha did twice as many miracles as Eliyahu did. Talking about Elijah and Elisha. Messiah went up, leaving his anointing mantle to many. And he says, greater works shall you do. So we are anointed to fulfill the calling that Elohim has for you. Do as Messiah did. And what did Messiah do? He read the prophecy which spoke of him, preach the good news to the poor, proclaim freedom to those in bondage, recover the sight of the blind, release the oppressed. This is our new job description. This is who we are. It's what Messiah was told to do. We need to do, because we are the body. He's the head, but we are the body. Romans 11:16. 11:16 of Romans. For if the first fruit is holy, as Messiah is, right? He's kadosh. The first fruit is kadosh. The lump is also kadosh, is also holy. And the lump is the kahal, right? We are the lump. I could have thought some more flattering ways to describe us, but first fruit and the lump. Okay, if the first fruit is holy, the remainder is also holy. And if the root, and that's the root out of dry ground, Messiah, is kadosh, so are the branches. The branches, the Natzarim. And remember, Paul referred to, there are those unbelievers who call the Natzarim a sect. But the Natzarim are what we were called to be. We have all these different titles. We call ourselves Christianoi, we call ourselves Messianic. But the ultimate description of who we are has to be Natzarim. We have to be of that group. And I'll make a presentation about this. There's a really good presentation online under Christian Truthers called the Natzarim. They've done some good teachings. I can't speak for everything that they've ever done, but there's some really good ones along their lines. Christian Truthers, the teaching of the Natzarim. And the end-time Natzarim are what we were called to be. All these other names have no weight to them, but the Natzarim has extensive weight and body and substance and credibility. Okay, I'm going to Ephesians 4. Ephesians 4, 11 to 16. And he gave some to be apostles, some prophets, some evangelists, some pastors and teachers, for the equipping of the Kadoshim, for the equipping, so that we can present ourselves as as not knuckleheads, but kind of know what we're talking about. Okay, for the equipping of the Kadoshim, we need to be equipped with the full armor, but also with gnosis, with understanding, with intelligence, cycle, for the work of the ministry, for the edifying of the body of Messiah, till we all come to the unity of the faith and of the knowledge of the Ben Elohim, the Son of Elohim, to a perfect man, to the full stature of the fullness of Messiah. And I love the strangeness of that saying. We grow to the full stature of the fullness of Messiah, to his full height. We fill him. It's like a matrix creates the mold, and we just pour stuff in it till it fills up. The full stature of Messiah. Messiah is there. We need to build ourselves up into the full stature, the fullness of Messiah. A perfect man to the measure of the stature of the full Messiah. So we need to be, in essence, almost literally, Messiah. Then we should no longer be children or immature, tossed to and fro and carried about by every wind of doctrine, by the trickery of man and the cunning craftiness of deceitful plotting. That's the immature looking for that which tickles the ear and pleases the flesh. But speaking the truth in love may grow up or mature in all things into him. Again, we're growing up to that full stature, the full body, who is the head, Messiah, from whom the whole body, joined and knit together by what every joint supplies, according to the effective working, by which every part does its share. There's no freeloaders, okay? If you don't work, you don't eat, right? Every part does its share, causes growth to the body for the edifying of itself in love. So it's all about love. Preach the truth in love, edify for love. And again, it's not this starry-eyed infatuation. Love is agape. It's active love, selfless love, giving love. Okay? That's what love is. What's love got to do with it? Well, it's got everything to do with it. Okay? He is the head, the director of the body. His name, his teaching guides us, and he's the first fruits. Okay? Proverbs 3, verses 9 and 10. Honor the eternal Yah with your possessions and with the first fruits of all your increases. Okay, again, all your increases. Again, whether that's the tomatoes, whatever, and whatever increase occurs in our lives, keep him in mind. Give him the best of the best. So your barns will be filled with plenty, and your vats will overflow with new wine. You know, the word teaches us that as we give, it'll be given unto us. And again, I'm not one here who barks for people to send money in or anything like that. You know, I believe in the adage, freely give because we've been freely given. So we need to not be looking for a price tag on salvation, on proper teaching, but be faithful. Be faithful. Be generous with those who are generous with you for their time and their efforts. You know, be tov, be faithful. Okay. We're not interested in lining the pockets of fat cat ministries who only become more and more bloated and ridiculous as the Levitical priesthood did in the last few years. It became this big. The Kohanim were supposed to be teachers and reachable, and it became so bad that's when the Pharisees came out and say, "Hey, we got to create a more people-friendly movement because these guys are all pious with their nose scraping the ceilings, you know." And then they eventually became nose scrapers as well. Hey, it's not easy. I don't know how he puts up with us, you know. Sometimes when I do my studies, I just see how generous and wonderful and loving he is. Anyway, so we will find out in our own lives how that happens. Jeremiah 2 verse 3 speaks of Israel, not the land, the person. Yaakov became Israel. Yisrael was holiness to Yahweh. It was kadosh to Yahweh, consecrated to him. the first fruits of his increase. All that devour him will offend, and disaster will come upon them, says Yahweh. So all those groups that persecuted, the seed of Abraham over the years, they've come to nothing, right? The Assyrians, what happened to them? Where are they? You look at the statue presented in Babylon to Daniel. What's left? What other great powers are there from that? The Nazis, all these people who seek to devour Israel will have disaster come upon them. I will bless those who bless thee and curse those who curse thee. Psalm 126, 5 and 6. Those who sow in tears shall reap in joy. He who continually goes forth weeping, bearing precious seed for sowing, shall doubtless come again with rejoicing, bringing his sheaves with him. So doubtless we will be bearing sheaves with us to present them for our offerings to him. In response to his joy, we might be weeping during our endeavors in our lives. We're bearing the precious seed for sowing, but we will come again with rejoicing. We will bear the fruit. If we're faithful, we will see the daylight. We will continue to grow and to become more and more like the one who blesses, the one who loves. Yaakov, the first chapter of Yaakov, and I've made reference to this portion before, so I'll say it again. And again, I refer to the book of James as Yaakov. Again, the reason being that King James, Melech Jimmy, gets the honor. All the Jacobs in the New Testament are James. All the Jacobs in the New Testament remain Jacobs, except Jesus. Joshua remained Joshua, except Yeshua, who was distinct from that. Anyway, Yaakov, you read in the Greek, and it's transliterated Yaakov. Okay, 1:17 and 18. Every good gift and every perfect gift is from above. It comes down from the Father of lights, with whom there is no variation or shadow of turning. Of his own will he brought us forth. He birthed us. He birthed us by the word of truth, that we might be a kind of first fruits of his creation. Wonderful. And the gift, every good gift. The Hebrew word for gift, matan, is a gift, is a reward for faithfulness. He gives the gift as the Father gave his uniquely begotten, so that we may have everlasting life as first fruits. And bearing that fruit, that we have the seed of self-replication from generation to generation. We have that nice piece of fruit, got the seeds. So it just continues the cycle of life, self-replication. We too must give to bless. Our lives are not something to hang on to. It's something to give. That's when and where the power is unleashed. In the giving of his life, Yeshua transformed the whole world. Following the same pattern, the more that we give of our lives to Elohim, the more the power is released. The more we try to hold on to things, the less we have to give. You got that? The more we try to hold on to things, the less we actually have in order to give. That's why we're cheap in our giving, because we have less and less, because we're not projecting more and more through his loving power and his grace. If we walk in Yah's perfect will, we can live our lives as a gift. The gift that keeps on giving. The gift that keeps on giving. We can do that. We can do that. We can be the gift that keeps on giving. 2 Timothy 2:15. Be diligent to present yourselves approved to Elohim. Here we go. The presenting and the approval, the acceptance to Elohim. A worker who does not need to be ashamed. Okay, a worker, a doer of the word, rightly dividing the word of truth. So are we ashamed? The worker who does not need to be ashamed, rightly dividing the word of truth, rightly understanding the word, rightly delivering the word. And anyway, I was going to go into something, but I'll refrain from that, because I have another teaching that whole idea of dividing the word, some people think it means that we cut it up into different dispensations, but that's not what it says. And I'll be teaching about that shortly in the next few weeks, because these dispensationalists are are a thorn in the flesh and in the spirit of believers. Okay, Revelation 1, 5, and 6. Yeshua the Messiah, the faithful witness, the firstborn from the dead, and the ruler over the kings of the earth. To him who loved us and washed us from sins by his own blood. By that washing, we are now presentable to the Father. You know, if you're going to go meet somebody, you got a little kid, his hair's all over the place, make sure that you comb it down. Come on, straighten up, fix your little tie. You got to present yourself. You got to look good. Okay? And he made us kings and also queens and priests, Kohanim, to his Elohim and Father. To him be glory and dominion forever and ever. Amen. So he made us, again, Kohanim in the order of Melchizedek, not the order of the Levitical priesthood. Because when we read in Hebrews, we see how the Levitical priesthood had failed so many times. So many times. And we read in the book of Malachi how it was so beautiful to start, and then how the wheels came off eventually, you know? Because Messiah's got to be the standard of holiness, not our own, certainly not him. Even though he was holy at a certain point, but he, failed in certain key issues. We jump to Revelation 14:4. The 144,000 who have the Father's name written on their foreheads are the ones who follow the Lamb wherever he goes. They were redeemed from among men, being first fruits to Elohim and to the Lamb. We go wherever he goes. He says, if you want to follow me, take up your execution stake and come on, boys. Plenty of room on this bandwagon. We think we're going to be kings and queens. We want to be that, right? We don't realize that we have to pass through the veil of tears sometimes, the veil of darkness. Psalm 23, even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil. You are with me. You help me to get through this. So we need to be faithful. Just like today, the Psalms. My brethren, Psalm 90 and 91. Great words to live by and be encouraged by. Not to be fearful. We should not be fearful. We need to be faithful. And faithful to each other, and exhibiting that faith for our own benefit too. As we give of ourselves, as we live and are faithful to give, we are replenished, and we are replenished with more than we had before we started giving. Even as Messiah talked about, you give and it's like patted down and overflowing. We give, and of course, inevitably this is reduced to money, and mammon. The spirit of mammon is the root of all evil. The love of that is the root of all. Does money have your attention? And I'm speaking in this day where we're being financially challenged because we're unable to work. We're not unable to, not our own fault. You don't work, you don't eat. But that's talking about the laziness of work that's available. Right now, we have everything shut down. We need to exhibit our faith now. We don't go belly up in this world. Anyway, I'm going to go to the book of Acts, chapter 17. Starting with verse 28. But 28, after the previous few verses, which talks about Elohim who made the world and everything in it, has made from one blood every nation of men, is not far from each one of us. He's not far. He wants us to respond to him. And he's speaking in Athens. He's speaking to quote unquote pagans, ungodly, and yet he's talking to them as people, as people, not screaming at them, but speaking to them. We're not far. Even Messiah, when a Pharisee or a Kohen would say something, he says, "You know what? You're not far. You're not far," and that's a good thing. To not be far means we are near. To not be far means that we are near. To not be far implies that we might be approaching. We might be arriving soon. This is the goal. The eternal Yahweh does not want anyone to perish, but that everyone would catch up. Everyone would grow nearer and nearer until they are part of his flock, part of his people, part of his family, acknowledging their brother, Messiah Yeshua, as their atoning work, sacrifice for them. Okay? Not far from each one of us. In verse 28, for in him we live, we move, and we have our being, as also some of your poets have said, for we are his offspring. Therefore, since we are his offspring of Elohim, we are B'nai Elohim, as Messiah is Ben Elohim, uniquely begotten as no one who is begotten as he is. So when we say only begotten, that's not fully true. He's uniquely begotten, because those who have been born again have been begotten. So it's the uniquely begotten. He's the one and only. There's nobody who's going to be Messiah, Mashiach, Yeshua. Therefore, since we are the offspring of Elohim, we ought not to think that the divine being or the divine nature is like gold or silver or stone, something shaped or an image made, foreign image made by man's design and skill, by art and men's devising. Truly, these times of ignorance, Elohim is overlooked. He's winked at these things. He's given certain allowances. His wrath was not poured out. But now he commands all men everywhere to repent, because he has appointed a day on which he will judge the world in righteousness by the man whom he has appointed, or he has ordained, or he has presented, and as we see in John chapter 20, the Messiah, who wouldn't think he needed to further prove himself, had to present himself as the first fruits. He had to do that. You don't restrain me. I got to do this. Tell my brothers that I have to ascend first. So he is appointed. He is ordained. He is appointed, presented. He has given assurance of this to all by raising him from the dead. He gave us the assurance, the approval, stamp of approval. Acts 26:23. That Messiah would suffer. He would be first to rise from the dead and would proclaim light to the Jewish people and to the Gentiles. And we think of Gentiles, we think of, Jewish people and Gentiles. But don't forget, the other 9 tribes of Israel were sifted through the nations. So when we say Gentiles, we include those who were not Israel, but we certainly include that which is Israel. What did Yeshua tell his Talmudim? Only go to the lost sheep of the house of Israel. Only go to those that are of Israel. That was his ministry. And even Paul was called to the Gentiles. He was called to the nations. There's a strong element of Israel there, if not completely. If ever you wonder and you're saying, well, I was brought up with Grecian culture. I was brought up in Latin America. I was brought up in Africa, whatever. And all of a sudden, through my life, I have this urge to keep Torah. I have this urge, this desire, strong desire to pursue the original method of worship. What is that? Is that a call? Because don't forget, when Israel is joined together, it's going to be an amazing day. It's going to be an exodus beyond when the Eternal gave Abraham the promise of his seed. It's just like the stars of the sky. You can count all the Jewish people in the world. Just one tribe. There's 11 else out there. And again, they have mingled through the nations. They have blessed the nations by their abilities and contributions to their culture, their language, their sciences, their art, their literature. They've benefited mankind. Israel has always been the light for the nations, and Israel is coming out of the nations. That is what will happen in the end times, when Israel once again is reimagined, reconfigured, with all 12 tribes coming, and it's going to be an amazing day. Again, like I said, there's going to be people who said, from China, from India and Pakistan, who are going to say, wow, why do I have this desire to pursue Elohim in this method of, and it can't just be explained by the Jewish roots movement and people wanting to know what there's something beyond that, something beyond that. Yisrael, you who are looking at me, you could very well be of Israel. And I tend to think that you are of Israel. And it's a challenging teaching, because people are going to say, no, the Jewish people are Israel, the Jewish people. No, it's not true. It's not true. The Jewish people are descending from the tribe of Judah or from the southern kingdom in Jerusalem. All the northern kingdom was all scattered years earlier, going to Assyria and deposited along the way. And the question is, where did they go? And there's different denominations have different ideas. I like the Church of God position. I like some of the other positions, but we can't be dogmatic about it. No, it couldn't be those going to Europe. No, it couldn't be those going to Africa. No, it could. Don't be dogmatic. Why couldn't it all happen? Just like those people who are looking for a solution based on two different ideas. Well, why not something like, for instance, like what we're doing today? Let's find a cure for these people. Let's take care of their needs, and let's get back to work. Those shouldn't be two distinct ideas. They should be one idea. We can't go on like this. Somebody's got to pay the rent, eventually. So we got to get back to work eventually. We got to get healthy and back to work. It's not two distinct ideas. We're not a prisoner of one extreme or the other. So anyway, Israel, let us be faithful. As Yehuda and Yisrael were not so faithful at different points, different times. And what did the prophets talk about? They talk about Judah and Israel, or called Ephraim or Jacob. Because remember, at the end of the book of Genesis, when Yisrael is blessing Ephraim and Manasseh, he says, I have put my name on you. So Ephraim and Manasseh are Israel. They are Israel. Okay? So where are they? There's a lot of intriguing answers to that. And as far as I'm concerned, they're probably all right to one extent or the other. And that's beautiful. But don't limit. Don't say the state of Israel is Israel and all Israel. And the corruption that goes on in things. And yeah, I'm a supporter of Israel, but number one, their flag is the flag with the hexagon. And I did a whole teaching on that weeks ago, maybe a month or so ago. And if we're flying under that banner, we better make sure that we know what we're doing. Anyway, I apologize for those who are waiting for me to get on with it and conclude. Well, I got one more verse to conclude, and then I will do that. To Deuteronomy 16:9, again, reminds us of tomorrow, reminds us of the day. You shall count 7 weeks or 7 Sabbaths for yourself. Begin to count the 7 weeks from the time you begin to put the sickle to the grain, to harvest the barley, the wave offering. And again, Malachi 3:6, we're talking about, well, he used to do this then, does different windows. I do not change. I don't change. So it's wonderful. It's wonderful to know that we have a consistent Elohim who loves us and supplies our needs and keeps us, observes us, watches over us, protects us. And like those 2 Psalms, especially 91, that's the one that Pat read, right? 91. Read that. Be comforted by that. But don't make assumptions. Oh, I guess I'm going to be blessed. No, we have to go deeper, further. Let us be B'nai Elohim. Let us be the sons, the children of Elohim. Let us do that. Let us do that. Read 1 John. Read these various portions which talk about these very serious things that most people don't really think much about. So again, I thank you. That was my warm-up. I'm going to get to the real message in a moment. No, that's my conclusion of the first fruits. Tomorrow morning, we're going to be assembling by our conference call method. Unfortunately, we don't have barley to produce, but we're not in Israel with the Kohanim and such. And also, have your mind opened to the temple. Oh, well, we're going to start building the temple. Or maybe the temple is here. We're living stones that we have enough examples. The book of Revelation talks about that we are pillars in the temple. We are the living stones of the temple, according to Kepha and Yochanan, both showing us that we are, and how is the temple defiled? It was defiled by false teaching. The temple, as far as I'm concerned, has been defiled. There's people who don't know their behinds from their elbows. They don't know the difference. They don't know who they are. They have an identity crisis. They preach falsehood and leaven, chametz. So as far as I'm concerned, the temple has already been defiled. There's been abominations done over the years, under the name of Constantine, under the name of quote unquote church fathers, who, through their antinomian ignorance, did a lot of wickedness. 18th century, a lot of abuses of in things that we talked about, hinted at. I'm going to talk about this in weeks to come, about the dispensationalists, the two covenant theology, and all this stuff, which basically is embraced and preached from the pulpits of the Reformation, the various denominations, evangelicals. They're all holding to these teachings, all these erroneous teachings made by unholy people. So pray, watch and pray. We desire to go back to the original source and not be contaminated. So let us do that. Let us not just say we're going to do it. Let's do it. Okay, I'll stop there. Otherwise, I'll just keep going, and I'll start losing folk if I haven't already. Again, I would ask that you subscribe and let us know what you think. I'm going to give you contact information right now, and contact us. If there's a subject that we've touched upon you don't agree with, or some subject that needs to be understood better, again, we're not going to have all the answers yet, but I believe if we have a goal in mind of studying, we're going to come up with solutions. We're going to come up with some answers. So again, keep in contact with us. Our congregation's name is Beth Tefilah, and Kahal Elohim is our handle here, because we all must be the Kahal Elohim. There's one Kahal Elohim. There's one. If you're faithfully studying the Word, believing the truth, we belong to each other's group. We are all part of the same. We're just in different locations, different locales. So this is not my congregation. This is not it's his congregation. It's his kahal. But our name is Beth Tefilah, which we get from the book of Isaiah, the house of prayer for all nations. So it's Beth Tefilah, Messianic Congregation, Inc. And it's P.O. Box 170384, 170384, Ozone Park, New York, 11417. Okay, 11417. You see our phone number there. We're nice and clear today. So again, I don't have to mention it, but give us a call. Give us a call. We are milkakkorn@AOL.com. Drop us a line. Drop us a line in the live chat here. I don't see anybody currently on there. But please, let's communicate. Let's communicate. With this luxury that we have, where we can read more and view more, check the internet for different teachings, whatever, just be careful. Be careful. Proceed with caution. Proceed with caution with us, too. We don't want anyone to say, well, that's what they were teaching. It sounded good. I don't want that at all. 1 Thessalonians 5:21. Test all things, prove all things. Be like the Bereans, who were singled out of all the communities that Paul visits. So they were the... It's probably difficult. And I've had this over the years, and I speak with Moshe, that we knew this couple. And dealing with this individual was like kind of a nightmare. So I'm saying, ask questions and such, and it's a tough nut to crack, man. Anyway, but let us come together. Let us learn from each other and be faithful to each other. Amen. And at this time, we're going to read the 10 words, and then we're going to go and do part B, a short little message, which you'll see in the description is Genesis 5, the gospel message. And this is really cool. And again, it's something that I stumbled upon. I had heard, and then I saw, and I said, okay, let me do that. Okay. So the 10 words, we look to Deuteronomy, Devarim, chapter 5, verse 1 and following. So again, look it up yourself or just listen and let the words ruminate. These are the 10 words. And Genesis 5 deals with the 10 first names. And we're going to see something interesting in that presentation. Because if you put the names, again, the names have meaning. You put them together, you basically have a little paragraph making an astounding declaration, okay? Okay. And Moshe called all Israel, not just the Jewish people, called Israel, all Israel, and said to them, Shema Yisrael, hearken, or hear, O Israel, the statutes and judgments which I speak in your hearing today, that you may learn them and be careful to observe them. Yahweh, our Elohim, made a covenant with us at Horeb. Yahweh did not make this covenant with our fathers, but with us, those who are here today, all of us who are alive. Yahweh talked with you face to face on the mountain from the midst of the fire. I stand between you. I stood between and you at the time to declare to you the word of Yahweh. For you were afraid because of the fire and did not go up to the mountain. And he said, I am the eternal Yah, your Elohim, who brought you out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of bondage. You shall have no other Elohim beside me. I'm sufficient. You don't need anything else. You shall not make for yourself the carved image, any likeness of anything that is in the heavens above, or that is in the earth beneath, or that is in the waters under the earth. You shall not bow down to them, nor serve them. For I, Yahweh your Elohim, am a jealous Elohim, visiting the iniquity of the fathers upon the children, to the third and fourth generation of those who hate me, but showing mercy to thousands, to those who love me and keep my mitzvot, my commandments. You shall not take the name of Yahweh your Elohim in vain, in vanity, for Yahweh will not hold him guiltless who takes his name in vanity. Observe the Sabbath day, Shabbat, to guard it as holy. Shomer, guard it as holy, as Yahweh your Elohim commanded you. 6 days you may labor and do all your work, but the seventh day is the Shabbat of Yahweh your Elohim. In it you shall not do any work, you nor your son nor your daughter, nor your male servant nor your female servant, nor your ox nor your donkey, nor any of your cattle, nor your stranger who is within your gates. Amen. The Gentiles. That your male servant and your female servant may rest and cease from the activities, as well as you. And remember that you were a slave in the land of Egypt, and Yahweh your Elohim brought you out from there by a mighty hand and outstretched arm. Therefore Yahweh your Elohim commanded you to guard the Sabbath day. Honor your father and your mother, as Yahweh your Elohim has commanded you, that your days may be long, that it may be well with you in the land which Yahweh your Elohim has given you. You shall not murder, you shall not commit adultery, you shall not steal, you shall not bear false witness against your neighbor. You shall not covet your neighbor's wife, you shall not desire your neighbor's house, his field, his male servant, his female servant, his ox, his donkey, or anything that is your neighbor's. You don't need it. These words Yahweh spoke to all your assembly in the mountain from the midst of the fire, the cloud, and the thick darkness, with a loud voice, and he added no more. He wrote them on 2 tablets of stone and gave them to me. Amen. Amen. And this Torah is for us to know, to understand, should not be foreign to us, should be very clear, as the word says, it's near you, it's in your mouth. Again, the heart-mouth connection from Deuteronomy 30. To stay, choose life, choose life. Okay, I'm just going to say a prayer. Let's just pray together for a moment. Avinu Malkeinu, our Father, our King, we give you thanks this day on this Shabbat. Right here we have a beautiful sunny day. It's a little chilly, but I just thank you for keeping us safe and preserving us to this day, Abba. For this day on the cusp of Yom HaBikurim, the day of the first fruits, Abba. We thank you that we can observe these things. We can walk as Messiah walked, as he kept, and he went to the synagogue on the Shabbat, which was his custom, which is the way that he did business, Father. And I just pray that we would be faithful and to be spiritually minded, not carnally minded, Father. Help us to truly experience a turning, a change in our hearts, in our thoughts, in our behavior. And Abba, in these days of uncertainty regarding this virus and such, I just pray that you keep us safe, keep us focused on what we can do, how we can remain safe, how we can move forward with our lives and not be held captive. But you've given us the freedom to study, to pray, to read your word, to communicate with each other. And we thank you for this day. We thank you for your goodness, your mercies. We give you praise this day, Father. And I just pray for the health and the well-being among the mishpacha, the chavarim that we have gathered together with this most unusual device, but it's such a blessing. And we thank you, Father. We just pray that you would meet their needs, even as you did in Egypt to Israel, Father, with a mighty hand and an outstretched arm. You desire all to come to repentance, to make teshuvah, to come to the fullness of Messiah, to grow into the fullness of Messiah, that we would aspire to be who he was and who he is, Father. And one day we will see him as he is because we will be like him. But for now, we need to be as Mashiach, the servant, and be Evadim, to be an Eved, to be a servant before you, Father, to do the work that's required. We give you thanks this day. Just be with us, guide us, protect us, help us to clear our thinking. We pray for unsaved loved ones, Abba. We pray against addictions, compulsions, habits, foolishness, selfishness, ignorance, pride, loneliness, frustrations, Abba. We pray against these things, Abba, that people would get a fresh start and become new fruit, fresh fruit, and to move in the Ruach in their lives, Abba, and that we'd all be happy and successful and have your simcha. We give you thanks for all things this day. We give you praise in the mighty name of Yeshua HaMashiach. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. Okay, now, here comes a fun little part here. Turn with me to Bereshit chapter 5. That's Genesis chapter 5. And again, the first 10 names that are listed in that I have right here. I'm going to start here down and here down, okay? It's going to be hard for me to do, but I will do it. Okay, the first name is Adam. Adam, that's Adam. Adam. The second name, this is not easy for me to do. Okay. The second name, no. It's going to be hard on your arms, I think.
No, it's okay.
Okay. The second name is Shait. Shait. Be careful how you say that. That's Seth. Seth. Okay. The third name is Enosh. Enosh. Okay. The fourth name is Canaan. Canaan. Okay. The fifth name is Mehalel. Mehalel. And then going back to the top, right here. Where am I? Right there. That is Yared. Below Yared, we have Chanoch or Enoch. Okay. And the name below that is Metushalesh, Metushalet, which is Methuselah. Below that, we have Lamech. And below that, we have Noah. Okay. Okay. You got those names? Okay. Starting to get heavy. Okay. You can put that down.
Oh.
So those are the 10 names, the first 10 names of this message. Now, the reason why it's a message is because these names have meaning. Adam means man, with the word dam hidden in there, which is blood. So it's like red clay, right? The clay, we were made from the dust from the four corners of the earth. Into the clay, we became Adam, mankind. The second name is Shait, Shait, which means compensation or to sprout or appointed. Again, to compensate, to appoint. Okay. The third name, which is Enosh, refers to mortality, to mortal. The fourth name, Canaan, is one acquired or begotten, or also it can mean sorrow, or a begotten sorrow, sadness. Mahalel, with the el at the end, Mahal El is splendor, glorious, blessed. He is splendorous. It's a good name, right? And then at the top, number 6 is Yared, which refers to Yared. Well, he will descend, or he will come down. He will descend, even as Yahweh comes from the heavens, right? And the Father sends the gifts from above, descending. Hanoch, the one for whom a book is named after, the one who was taken away, he was, and then he was not, is to be a teacher, is to be taught, teaching. Hanoch, and he was a teacher, for sure. Metushalah, or Metushalach, is an unusual word. You'll find some don't know what it means, but it means his death shall bring. How'd you like to have a name like that? His death shall bring. And of course, we know that with regards to the flood, because his son was Lamech and his son was Noah. And when Methuselah died, the flood began. In fact, there are some that believe that the 7 day that was spent in the ark were sitting Shiva for Methuselah, who died. Methuselah, he who died was not allowed to see the punishment, even as we see with regard to the kings of Judah, that for the righteous ones, that they would die before the captivity, basically. So death is not the worst thing that can happen to you. Lamech is Methuselah's son, Lamech, and it can be overthrower, a wild man, or despairing. The father of Methuselah, whose death shall bring, is despairing because of the condition of the world, continues to degenerate, continues to get worse, the groaning, so he's despairing. And Noah is rest and comfort, to find comfort. So when you assemble these names into a sentence, something very interesting emerges. It's man, who's Adam, has appointed mortal sorrow. Mortal sorrow, in other words, sorrow leading to death. Man has appointed mortal sorrow for the fall, which we read before about. We were in the image of the man of dust was who we were, but now we are to bear the image of the man of Hashemayim, of the glorious heavens. So man has appointed mortal sorrow, but the blessed Elohim, or the splendorous Elohim, shall come down teaching, and his death shall bring the despairing ones comfort. Interesting. So here we see a presentation of the gospel. Man has appointed moral sorrow, in sinning and falling away from Elohim and from his teaching, from his position of authority in their lives. But Elohim, who is blessed, shall come down and teach. Shall come down and teach us. And his death shall bring the despairing ones comfort. So that's pretty cool, no? You got to admit that's pretty cool. And that's Genesis, Bereshit 5, the first 10 names on that list. Okay, I'll say it again. Man has appointed himself mortal sorrows from his falling away. But the blessed Elohim shall come down teaching, and he will teach, and his death shall bring those who despair comfort. So here we are. This is Bereshit 5, and as I've showed you before through the Torah, we looked and we saw the name of Yonevave separated throughout the different books of the Torah. which I thought was an interesting thing also. Again, not original. Didn't do all that bean counting. But this is Genesis chapter 5. Pretty cool. I love that. It is great stuff. And this is what happens when you study. You take that extra effort and you find gems like this. Well, I've got to look at my notes here. You wouldn't be able to read it, number one. But so just bless the Lord. How wonderful we can find some little hidden things in there, which we generally are not going to see. And that's why it's good to have a concordance, whether it's Strong's, whether it's Young's, and look up certain words, find the definition, see the words around it. There are certain words that are the same meaning, but certain different applications. And look at the definitions, look how they're used. And you'll find some very interesting things there. Again, don't go flying off by every wind of doctrine and such as we're warned against. But we'll find something deeper and more beautiful, more wonderful than we could have anticipated. So, we give thanks to the Most High, and we're drawing to the conclusion of our 21st effort. I just pray that you found it interesting, found it challenging, and again, take the stuff, go forward with it, and learn more, build upon it, make it better, make it more, whatever. But this is what I've been doing. I've been studying to show myself proved, hopefully, and that's not just in teaching, but in studying, but in living. Let us live Habesar Tov. Let us live the good news. Let us live it and breathe it. It's not just something that's, with our lack of sports, we're reading the Bible. Let's not do that. Let us realize that the greatest sport, the greatest competition is going on for your soul. It's going on for your identity. It's going on for your sanity. And we need to acknowledge Yud-Heh-Vav-Heh, the eternal Yahuwah, in all ways, in all ways. So again, we thank you. At this time, we will say the closing blessings, and then we will have the benediction. So, okay. Is that my stomach? Congregational response after Torah reading. Amen. This is the Torah which Moshe placed before the children of Israel. It is in accord with the hand of Yahweh's. It is in accord with the Eternal's command by the hand of Moshe. The tree of life, it is for those who take hold of it. Blessed are the ones who support it. Its ways are ways of pleasantness. All its paths are peace. Long life is in its right hand, and its left are riches and honor. The Eternal was pleased for the sake of his righteousness to render the Torah great and glorious. Amen. 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 When the ark rested, Moshe would say, "Return, O Yahweh, to the myriads of Israel's families. Arise, O eternal Yah, to your resting place, you and your mighty ark. Clothe your priests with righteousness. May those who have experienced your faithful love shout for joy."
Amen.
Amen. For the sake of your servant David, don't delay the return of your Mashiach. I give you good instruction. Do not forsake my Torah. So, in my limited capacity, I give you good instruction. Do not forsake Torah. Do not forsake our birthright understanding of his unique, singular instructions. Nowhere else can you find the words that breathe life into your soul, life into your purpose, and define who you need to be. It's wonderful. And be challenged. Be challenged. Don't fall asleep in the light. Amen. Now may the eternal Yahweh bless you, and may he keep you, Shamar. May he make his face to shine upon you and be gracious unto you. And may he lift up his countenance upon you and give you peace, the peace that surpasses our understanding, to guard our hearts and our minds in Messiah Yeshua. Amen. Amen. Toda rabah. Yivarechecha Yahuwah vayishmerecha. Yair Yahuwah panav elecha vechunecha. Yisa Yahuwah panav elecha v'yasem lecha. Shalom. Shalom, shalom. Perfect peace. Perfect peace. Thank you, Father. Thank you, Father. And I thank you once again for being with us, for giving us this time in your Shabbat. I won't say your busy schedule, because this is Shabbat, everything screeches to a halt. We pay attention to the Adon HaShabbat. The Lord of the Sabbath wants us to be in fellowship, or the closest we can be, but he also wants us to hear his word. This is the time of Torah. This is Torah time. That's when the 2 tablets were given to us. Matching tablets, as all covenants were. They're not 1 through 5 and 6 through 10. They were the same copies, like the 2 cherubim on the top of the mercy seat, identical. So there are 2 parts of the contract. That's why when Moses smashed them, they were null and void. One wouldn't survive the other because of our failure. So anyway, so let us be mindful and watch out for each other, love each other in word and in deed, and may the word flow from us out of abundance of our hearts. Amen. Amen.
The Lord lift his countenance upon you and give you peace, and give you peace. The Lord never keep his face to shine upon you and be gracious, and be gracious. The Lord be gracious, gracious unto you.
Amen. Amen. And remember, tomorrow morning is a biblically mandated day, and it's called Yom HaBikurim. It has nothing to do with the goddess of fertility, Ishtar. Again, read Deuteronomy 12, read Jeremiah 10, and Mark 7. Those 3 show us that we have no room in our lives to adapt to the ways of pagan worship. And, we don't want to be judgmental again, but the proof is in the pudding. We just need to be faithful to our Most High, loving Father, who established tomorrow as a day, if you can assemble or pray or acknowledge this time of first fruits, Abba. And I just pray that everyone would get that sense of the importance of that day, of that Yom. It is a Kadosh Yom. And just love the Lord in word and in deed, and show your love to him. And be faithful, because a lot of people who call themselves believers are going to be doing it with all the trappings of all the things that we're trying to escape from. And so we have to be very careful. It's like walking in a minefield. And be smart, and love the Most High, because he has certainly loved us, and he has set us Messiah as the first fruit. He's not ashamed to call us brethren, unless we give him cause to be ashamed of us. So let us not make that possibility a reality in our lives. Let us not be ashamed. I'm not ashamed of the gospel, as Rav Shaul said. Let us not. The gospel is the power, is the flesh, is the meat of Messiah himself. He's the flesh, the tangible reality of the physical reality of Messiah. Let us live as he lived, and think as he thinks, and make the most of our time, redeem the time. And again, I give you thanks for joining us this day. And again, thank you. And again, come back next week. We got some really good teachings down the pike here. I'm telling you, you won't be disappointed. And again, we're praying. Pray for our friend Michael that he would come back and be healthy and continue his teaching series, which I guarantee you haven't heard before, and the challenges are also there. So we say Shabbat Shalom. Be well, be safe, and be faithful. And we give you thanks again for joining us. And Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
Be well.